Have you ever watched something that completely rewired your brain chemistry?
A procedural network drama might not be your usual pick, but it's ours.
This is The Buddie System, a 911 deep dive podcast hosted by three friends who have DM'd each other enough character dissertations to earn a PhD in media literacy.
I'm Han, coming to you straight from the characters' heads.
I'm Sil, bringing you to the observation deck.
And I'm Rachel, connecting the dots with my red string.
With our powers combined,
No stone is left unturned.
And no buddy is left behind. This episode is brought to you by Maddie Chimney's Very Jewish Christmas. Welcome to Dispatch. What's on call this week?
Today we're discussing Season 2, Episode 10, titled Merry Xmas. Written by Christopher Monfett, directed by Bradley Bucher, originally aired Monday, November 26, 2018.
we have some festive calls of the week. The first is Hit the Deck, the Halls. In an attempt to one-up his neighbor's Christmas light show, a man gets knocked off his roof by an inflatable decoration. We have Special Delivery. At a shipping facility, a young man gets stuck inside a package bound for a Christmas delivery. Under the Missile Drone, a waitress is attacked by a flying mistletoe-outfitted drone that shaves off the tip of her nose. And I'll Be Home for Christmas. A Marine on his way home to surprise his daughter at her Christmas recital gets waylaid after getting caught in a bus accident.
So this is our very festive Christmas episode, and we're so dedicated that we decorated and dressed up. We're recording this on Halloween.
It's literally Halloween right now. It is 9:23 p.m., October 31st.
But we wanted to bring the holiday cheer. Okay. And if you're not watching us on YouTube, which by the way, you can watch all of our podcast episodes on YouTube, on the Buddie System YouTube channel, we are decked out, I guess you could say, in our very wonderful Christmas ugly sweaters. well,
Minus a t-shirt.
close enough.
This is Batman's emo Christmas.
Yes. What did you say, Han, earlier? We're representing the three.
Oh, so we're the three winter holidays. It's Christmas, Hanukkah, and Batman.
So Scylla is representing Christmas.
Yes,
Christmas.
obviously.
I am wearing my ugly Hanukkah sweater, which says "Winner, winner, kosher dinner."
And I have Batman, and it's the bat signal.
Wait, it's sequins.
Oh!
Yeah, I know.
Okay, yours is the coolest one.
She wins.
But it's awkward because, like, at family gatherings, because I'm like stimming. I'm like,
Okay, so you won the ugly sweater contest.
also for people watching on YouTube, or I guess listening, because I'm explaining this verbally anyway. I have a Christmas tree behind me, and I don't want you to think that I insanely put this up on Halloween. It's literally been up since last December. I just moved it from the living room.
That's worse.
All year round.
It's a skinny little one, and we put it in the corner of the living room, and I put it up so late last year that I was like, we got to leave it up. And I normally leave it up till March anyway, because I'm an insane person. And then it was like May, and my partner and I looked at each other and we're like, this just lives here now, right? Except for when I need it for a podcast episode, then it's going to go right back into the living room.
I don't know. You can be celebratory all year round for different things. It's
just a nerd tree. It's not really Christmas.
Anyways, so all of that to say, we're so dedicated to bringing you
Christmas episode.
the Christmas episode.
The number one Christmas episode, because I mean we have like some Christmas specials coming up, but
Take us away into Silent Night, Rachel. Let's go. Or Han.
so Christmas. So this is an episode. How did we feel about this episode?
Oh yeah, we didn't even talk about that.
We started talking about Christmas and it just devolved.
Oh, so quickly.
As it does.
How I feel about the episode? It's Christmas, and I'm a fan of elves.
Number one elf stan.
Number one elf stan. No, you have a very adorable son.
She sees gay, she says gay.
Save that for Slover.
As far as the episode goes, elves aside, I don't know. It's a good episode. It had one of the best fucking. I was gagged at the end of that episode.
Oh shit!
Yes,
The reveal.
We were unwell.
Okay, because we rewatched. This is a rewatch. Like we've seen it before,
Yeah.
but like thinking back to like the first time that you watched this,
Yeah,
I was like, like gagged, gooped. You know,
it's so funny because and we're gonna get into it, but like I have like this penchant for kind of like giving or getting vibes from a person, or in this case characters, and I'm just
You
like,
have an
why
excellent vibe radar.
You do.
vibe check? Yeah.
Yeah.
That guy did not pass the vibe check.
Mm-mm.
Just like redacted. But anyway, yeah, no, I watch it.
Or we're calling him now on the pod. Redacted.
Oh, God. Not even that, man.
Yeah, so I have a pretty good vibe check or vibe radar or whatever, and like just seeing him on screen, just showing up out of nowhere, did not pass. And then I was still gagged when I first watched this episode. And then I don't know. I mean, it's a good episode. It has like cute family reunion stuff, and then relationship milestones that we're like getting through. Other than that, yeah, a good episode overall.
Yeah, like I think it's a very solid episode, and I think it did something pretty well where it, like, I feel like a lot of times for a holiday episode of kind of anything, it can lean into like the hokiness of it very easily. And especially with something like 911, which is very inherently campy, I feel like that could have been very easily done, but I think they managed to keep this episode like very grounded. There were some lighthearted moments. I wouldn't say it's like the funniest episode. I think there are others that are far funnier, but it maintains that balance between like the lighthearted moments with like this undercurrent of not seriousness, of like heart, not to say like lighthearted and the heart of the episode, but that's kind of what it is, like what it's all surrounded. It was like very tight thematically to me, and it didn't lean too far into the it's holiday silly goofy camp. It was just like the regular kind of camp, which again I don't have a problem with, but sometimes I'm just like, I don't know.
I think it's really well balanced because it had some of those calls were pretty campy, and then you had a lot of like Hallmark Christmas, and then you also had like emotional, like some serious tones in there too. So I think it's a really well balanced, getting all of the, I guess, types,
hitting all the marks.
Yeah. The only thing I do have to say is, and I said that, I think I said this the other day, I was like, imagine if we were watching season 2 live, because I don't know if I was gonna, I don't think I would have been able to handle that.
I always think about Meg and I'm like, rip.
Oh yeah.
When I think about things like that.
Oh my gosh, yes. So like if anyone who's listening now has been watching from like the beginning, or at least like season 2, please tell us.
Right, and that's the mid-season finale. So you get that fucking
3 months.
So like get that bomb, and then you have to wait 3 months.
So like anyone who's listening, please tell us about your experience watching this with like such a shocker of a cliffhanger, and then waiting so long for the mid-season premiere, because like we understand, but like what theories were going on, like I want to know what fandom was saying,
because I know I immediately hit the next episode button when I was doing my first run through of this. I was like, no. And actually that was the one, I think that was the episode that really hooked me. I was like, oh, okay, we're getting serious now.
It's one of the best storylines that the show has done.
The entire Doug and
Maddie.
Oh yeah. Oh, it packs a punch.
Yeah.
Sorry for the not.
It just went over my head, honestly.
Pun is, I'm gonna make you a shirt that says "pun always intended."
I will wear that so proudly. Please. Oh my God. Everybody must know.
I think they know. The listeners absolutely know, at least. But yeah, I don't know. Everything they said. I love Christmas. I love holiday episodes of things. I think I liked this more than the Halloween one, just in the way that it wasn't as depressing.
It
one was
had a little
depressing.
holiday spirit in there.
Yeah, it had some of that heartwarming, like Syl said, Hallmark feel where it's, it's all about a family coming together. And then you get to see most of the fam together at the end. I want more of that.
Yeah.
Please.
Me too.
But yeah, generally just a very good episode. There's some weird things here. Can't wait to talk about it.
Oh, yeah. I think this episode is kind of infamous for a number of different things.
Yeah.
That sometimes the fact that it's a Christmas episode is secondary to it, which is kind of interesting. So yeah. We'll talk about that.
We remember because of the elf.
Well, that's what I'm talking.
Yeah. Hard to forget that it's Christmas because it's the elf.
But some of the other stuff, it's oh yeah, that was a Christmas episode. So who wants to talk about some deep divey things?
We're gonna need the jaws of life over here.
Give me the production tea, Rachel.
Oh, I got it. Okay, so
be serious for 1 second. Okay.
Again, this is a very serious show.
Obviously. Like we said, documentary levels of realism.
Oh, I meant us.
We're so serious.
911 not serious. We're serious.
The tea.
Rachel, go.
Yes, I'm
production
sorry.
Tea.
Yes.
While it's hot, please. Thank you.
Hype and hot. Okay, so I found a number of articles that came out around the time of this episode airing. There was one interesting one that from The Wrap, they spoke to Tim Minear about how the formula that they tend to use for each episode's emergencies. I thought that was really interesting because again, we like to look at some of the behind the curtain, production standpoints. Some of what he said that was the main crux of the show is how do you balance the personal stories with the emergencies? And that is what they're always trying to figure out per episode. So he said they have a rule of thumb that there may be about 4 or 5 cases in an episode, which I've definitely, I think we've picked up on because we list them out. So it's usually
4.
I have it in the template of our notes. It's just it's 4. So he said there's something that might highlight the 911 call center, like the guy in the box. So the Maddie call, and then they pick it up later after he's been shipped. So it goes into the firefighter response call. And then they look for something that's a little W2F, is what he said. Something that might be body horror, something that might be kind of funny. And then they also try to get something that feels moving and touching, that's life and death. And often those two things are the same. The moving and touching and the life and death story might be, one and the same, which I think we do find a lot of the times as well.
I was the escalator is the one that comes up.
Oh my gosh. I feel like the escalator one is it's kind of forgotten about a little bit, but
not to me.
No.
Or I don't see a lot of people really talking about it.
That's a new fear unlocked.
Yeah.
That's so I think about it every time I'm literally on an escalator.
Yeah, the last time I was on an escalator, I was like, oh, this happened on 911. Great.
Yeah, it's funny because I don't think about that on elevators. We've seen a lot of elevator things. No. It's
no, because there's what the fuck are you gonna do? Never take an elevator? No. With the escalator, I'm my legs are long. I will just step over that plate for the rest of my life.
No, and also with one more thing, with an elevator, it's kind of well, I chose to get on this contraption. So
look plain.
It's the difference between getting stuck and getting trapped, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then he just said one more thing about this kind of 4 or 5 emergency structure and what they're kind of looking for to get out of each of those. So he said when he first started television, TV was a teaser and 4 acts. So a teaser, I'm thinking that's the cold open and 4 acts. So he said now it's really a teaser and 6 acts. So there are a lot more act breaks and a lot more narrative pieces that need to be filled between those act breaks. And you want to be sure you don't go more than maybe 1 or 2 acts without a case. So I thought that was just interesting in the way, kind of him recognizing, because he's been in TV so long, kind of recognizing how the structure has changed
Yeah.
episodically, and how much more like there tends to be crammed in an episode, like beyond maybe an A, B, C plot. Like there's a lot of extra little things, but it's also, I feel like it might be easier for them to accomplish in this kind of show because it is an ensemble. So you have more to pull from anyways. Whereas if you had a smaller cast of like a main cast of characters where you're following maybe like 2 or 3 people, a 6-act thing would be a little harder to accomplish, I think. So I found that interesting, and I'm knowing that I kind of want to watch like the next episodes with like, okay, which like 1, 2, like the 6 different acts, and see how that. I just want to be like more
aware of that.
Yes, thank you. And then there were a couple other articles, a few also from the Wrap and one from TV Line, and they're all with Tim Minear as well. He was doing a lot of press, understandably, because this would have been the mid-season finale. And he's saying a lot of the same things about the episode in each of these. So I just pulled like a couple little quotes about the different characters. So in one of them, and we'll have all of the articles linked so you can read them yourself as well, like usual. For one of them, Tim Minear said that he wanted to make viewers think Doug was too good to be true. So he was going for that like magical helper like vibe, and kind of the Bishop's wife Christmas angel thing. And I hadn't really heard about the Bishop's wife, so I looked it up. I'll talk about that in like my little red string corner. But very much like a Christmas angel type of thing, which is, I think, accomplished with just like the way that like they introduced him and the camera work and all of that stuff is just kind of like, wow, who's that guy? You know? And then in referencing Bobby and Athena, there was a question of, is the Bobby proposal, are they going too fast? Is it, there was a question that I think a couple of the interviewers asked where it was like, is it going to last? Because, sometimes a holiday proposal doesn't really, go the distance. And Tim responded, he said, for someone who's gone through the kind of trauma that Bobby's been through, making what might seem like a nuts or rash decision may not be rash at all. It may be the most sensible decision to make, but there is an element of it that may be in the moment, and I'm not sure it will be smooth sailing. So that's what he said about that. Obviously, he's like teasing a little bit that things aren't going to be easy because this is a TV show, and if things were easy, you wouldn't have a story. But I really liked that he kind of put emphasis on, it makes sense for the character because Bobby is so like methodical and he thinks things out, but this also makes sense. So while it looks from the outside, kind of like crazy, this is so fast, it makes sense for him. And then the last article was a little longer. This one was from TV Line. Tim Minear is talking about the fall finale twists, right? And there was actually, before I get into that very briefly, there was actually a quote that he and the interviewer were talking about Hen Begins, which was the previous episode, right? And Tim Minear was saying that it was Ryan Murphy's idea for this kind of Begins episode, saying that Murphy felt it would be beneficial for the audience to learn about these characters and the cases that broke them. Every member of our ensemble could be the star of their own show, and episodes like that prove that. And he goes on to say, and Aisha is a star, obviously. So I thought that was interesting too, that was another one of those like collaborative moments that ends up being, cross series sort of thing, because we'll get like Buck Begins over in season 5, but so it's like, and season 2 and season 3, it's like throughout, and it's kind of neat that was like one of those ideas to really get to learn about like the characters' backstories. And then Tim mentioned stuff about the Eddie and Shannon reunion, how Shannon, as a mother who walked out on her special needs kid, is not really a likable character to begin with. So he wanted to show that Eddie, as great as he is, isn't perfect. They're just human beings trying to do the best they can with the situation they're in. Eddie and Shannon both have feelings for each other, and they both love that little boy. So I'm crossing my fingers for them. And I just wanted to say, that's an evil thing to say.
That's a
Mr.
lie.
Minear.
That was a fucking
if you're going with the theory or the thinking that I will like die on this crosswalk on, right? about how they already had plans about Shannon and the end of the season in place, which, you know, I brought up again that parallel with the escalator in episode 4.
Mhm.
So for him to say, I'm crossing my fingers for them, that is mean.
Timberly.
And so well done. So well handled. Like, I respect it, but I see what you're doing here.
That was evil work.
Because that's more than just saying like, and I'm not sure it's going to be smooth sailing for Bobby and Athena. No, it's like, I'm crossing my fingers for those kids. Like he doesn't hold their fate in his hands.
And see,
Evil.
slight sidebar.
Mhm.
Why do you think I don't trust this man?
I trust him to tell good stories.
Yes.
That I
That's the
enjoy.
difference.
Okay.
Do I trust him to always say what he means? No, but he's not doing a lot of interviews. So that's why, like, I'm
He
not
does a
taking
lot of
everything
interviews, actually.
anyone says at face value because they have to be liars, like, by nature of their jobs. Like, they're going out there to promote it, but they can only say so much and they have to use certain language. And I'm sure they're PR coached, probably not Tim, but like the actors are definitely like PR coached to be like
Some of them.
when
They're not in PR jail.
Macho, heterosexual man.
Some of them are probably coached on things like to say that could be like good buzzwords or like get people or like misdirect.
Yes.
There's lots of things that we could do probably a whole episode talking about this. But yeah, trust him to tell a good story. Trust him to not be evil in an interview.
Absolutely not.
No.
His spiritual son Oliver is absolutely evil in every interview.
Oh yeah.
The bottom line is just like take everything that anybody says in an interview, like a piece of PR, with a grain of salt, because they do have to inherently just kind of like
ahead of time. If it's post the thing, different.
Exactly. This is why I'm like, that's really evil to say. But just like the next week preview, purposefully misleading, right? But it gets you to tune in. Interviews, if posted beforehand, are the same thing.
This is all marketing.
It's just marketing. But I just thought that was so funny.
That's so funny. Yeah. Literally, what was it, 2-3 episodes ago? She's introduced in an episode where like the overarching theme is beating a dead horse.
Yeah, that was episode 7. So
she is
like 3 episodes.
She's the only horse at the end of it that continues to be beat. So, I'm just saying, there was no way that they didn't go into her storyline knowing that she was going to die.
Exactly. And I will say that. I will defend that.
Tim could tell me to my face that it came to them like mid-season, and I just wouldn't believe him.
No, absolutely not. There's too much weird foreshadowing before we even meet her, before she's even on screen. She's haunting the narrative before she even like shows up. Like, come on. And then for her to show up in Haunted, I mean.
Yeah. Also, we got to ramp up the angst for Mr. Ryan Guzman.
I know, right?
Give us the sad buck eyes. Wait.
Sad cow eyes.
Sad cow eyes. Sad cow eyes. I was trying to say deer eyes, I think. And then I was just like, fuck. And then I was like, oh.
I mean, having a character named Buck kind of ruins the whole, like, you know, equation to Eddie being a deer.
Sad moo moo eyes.
We love those.
Sad moo-moo
we love
eyes.
those big, sad moo moo cow eyes.
It's great. Love watching this man be tortured.
And then, last but not least, there's just a little brief mention of Buck and his storyline now that he's outside of that relationship with Abby. So
Thank
Tim mentioned that.
Praised be.
Praise be.
It's a Christmas miracle. It was a couple episodes ago.
A Halloween miracle.
It's a Halloween miracle. Like, yeah.
It's a Halloween. Oh my God, it's a Halloween Christmas miracle.
Hallowismus?
No.
Okay, I tried.
Christmaween.
Oh, Christmaween is better. Just like,
Anyway, moving on.
Sorry. Okay. So Tim was saying that he thinks Buck didn't really know who he was before. He felt like he was coming into his own in that relationship, and Buck will continue to grow and will keep giving him new challenges. And he does tease for Buck's storyline in the second half with the situation with his sister, Maddie, is going to play heavily into part of his story in the second half. And I kind of really like that pivot from Buck and relationship woes, like romantic relationship woes, more into like Buck and the familial relationship focus. Like we've been able to see throughout season 2, but it's kind of been a little more on the wayside. Like they keep dropping these little crumbs, right?
Mhm.
And it's kind of exciting to see like we're really going to see like more of the Maddie and Buck relationship and how maybe compared to the past and how it is now, and trying to like reestablish that and when big event things. So that was kind of what I had for the press. And then I do have a couple things for one of my favorite little segments, my red string corner. One day I'm just going to have like something behind me with like, like the
It's Charlie Day.
yeah, Charlie
It's
Day
Always Sunny.
from It's Always Sunny with like, anyways, that just think of me in these moments.
Yeah.
That's how I want you to think of me when presenting these things. So the actor who plays Doug, who we get introduced to in this episode, his name is Brian Hallisey. And funnily enough, he is Jennifer Love Hewitt's real life husband. And it was just kind of a perfect, coincidence, perfect storm of events, because Tim, in some of those articles that I found, he said that he actually gave Brian Hallisey his first job in network television like 10 years prior on Fox's The Inside, which was a procedural about a serial killer unit of the FBI. So I'm thinking probably along the same vein as like Criminal Minds. And he said it just worked out so perfectly. It just so happened that he is married to Jennifer Love Hewitt. It just worked out very well, I guess, when they were auditioning. And we'll also see that I think I've seen an article previously, and we'll link back to it when we get to like the actual episodes. But I'm pretty sure Jennifer Love Hewitt has also said that with the kind of storyline that they were giving Maddie and Doug, it was important for her to feel comfortable with the person playing Doug, which like totally understandable because they do a lot of very intense work. So who better than someone you are married to and you have that inherent trust? So I love that. And Tim also said that one of the reasons that he thought about Brian Hallisey for this role is he has a certain masculine charm, but he can also be incredibly creepy. And I was like, wow, what a compliment. That is high praise from Tim Minear, right?
Timberlake was on he was on a roll.
I would use those exact words to describe Ben Barnes too, just side note.
Yes. Ooh,
It's something in their eyes.
It's something in the eyes. I don't, but he doesn't have like super dark Ben Barnes
no.
demon eyes. No, it
black
is
hole eyes.
It is some sort of like, I don't know, the light in their eyes is like different. I don't know how to describe it, but so that's how that worked out. So the fake name that Doug gives when he meets Chimney in the Christmas tree lot is Jason Bailey. And I don't know about the Jason part, but George Bailey is the main character in It's a Wonderful Life. So I thought that was probably a little nod, little like tip of the cap to that. And for anyone, I mean, it's a very famous Christmas movie, but for anyone who doesn't know, It's a Wonderful Life is a movie from 1946, and it's about a man who has given up his personal dreams in order to help others in his community. And he's, at his wit's end. He's about to end it all, basically, when an angel shows up, and the angel shows George Bailey the lives that he's touched and what the world would look like if he hadn't existed. That's kind of the general overview of that. And then I think in one of the other articles that I did mention, when Tim was talking about introducing Doug as like this Christmas angel, and he mentioned The Bishop's Wife, and that's a movie from 1947, so a year later, and that's about an angel who helps a bishop with his problems, but the angel starts falling in love with the bishop's wife, and when the wife doesn't really understand what's going on with like this guy being an actual angel, she tells him it's time to leave and all memory of him is erased, and everything kind of like goes back to normal. So I haven't seen that one personally, so that was just kind of like a little summary from Wikipedia that I paraphrased. But I just thought that was kind of interesting that both of these movies, and we know Tim is a classic, specifically classic horror movie fan, but I think he's I think he's just a real movie cinema girly anyways. Because this is like very classic.
A cinephile in black and white.
Yeah. This is just like a very classic kind of movie. But they both have this like angel helping kind of plot device, and specifically with the bishop's wife, it's about this guy. This bishop is getting jealous that this guy who happens to be an angel is like moving in on his wife and stuff like that. And I haven't seen the movie, but I feel like there are some parallels to be drawn there between like how Doug is moving and Chimney and Maddie being a thing, and Doug's obvious like unhingedness and jealousy and stuff. So I thought that was just something to point out.
I have a thing shout out user Fido555. They said that it's very appropriate that the soldier surprised his wife and daughter during a performance of the song I'll Be Home for Christmas because it was written in World War II for soldiers who couldn't come home.
Oh,
I didn't know that.
Wow.
So fun fact.
That's kind of perfect.
Yeah.
There were a lot of Christmas songs in this episode. They use like all of the Christmas songs.
I know. And that's why, because, I'm normally all over the songs, but I was like, they're Christmas songs. They're self-explanatory. I don't need to be.
And there were so many
Christmas
of
songs
them.
to people. There were so many. Yeah.
And they were also like because it wasn't really like the modern Christmas stuff. It was the very like kind of classic.
It's all the classic. Yeah. Actually, well, now that I was like, oh, there's nothing to really explain. I think Silent Night is playing during that Maddie flashback.
Oh,
which is very interesting because those lyrics are about it being like silent, quiet, peaceful, all is calm, all is bright. You know what I mean?
Yeah, hopeful. And then you get that like
and it's like the juxtaposition of that against the absolute like devastation and the chaos and abuse there.
Yeah.
Didn't she also say that was the night that she decided she needed to leave? Though? So that's kind of like...
So it is kind of hopeful.
Yeah.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
It's always darkest before the dawn sort of thing.
Also, for those of you who are listening, please tell us if you knew before or after the episode that was actually Jennifer Love Hewitt's actual husband.
Because I knew afterwards.
I knew afterwards, and every time I'm on the timeline and someone that's new to 911 is watching that episode, they're like, wait, Doug was her actual husband? It's just funny.
Yeah,
when did you find out?
Also, did you see that cliffhanger coming at the end? Because I knew he was sus. I just didn't know what flavor of sus. And I think I was just distracted by everything else happening, and I shouldn't. They lulled me into a false sense of security. It was very much a gasp moment for me, which I enjoy when that happens.
I do love being just totally like,
yeah.
Oh
my God, I didn't predict this.
Because that means it's good storytelling. Even if you have like suspicions or whatever.
Everything in my head is just like, I don't like this. I don't like it. I don't like it. To quote Chris Evans.
At the end of the episode, TJ was like, so I just shouldn't trust anyone who's nice ever because they're trying to kill you. It's like, yeah, that's the lesson.
The moral
that's the exact lesson.
Oh.
He was joking, obviously.
I hope so. I could never walk through life like that. I'm way too optimistic.
No, he's also make everyone friend.
God, I wish I could do that.
I'm good.
That's why you have me.
I know.
No.
Why would I need to make friends when I have people who will do it for me?
One of my favorite things to do.
Anyway.
So that's interesting stuff. Yeah, I would love to hear like what people's actual reaction in watching live, or anyone's reactions, even if you're late to it like us. It's fun.
Or if you had like a wild theory of what he was before you figured it out.
Oh, please tell us. Those would be fun.
TJ, his first idea, he got it right on the third try. The first guess was, is that because he knows Shannon dies? He was like, is that the man who kills Eddie's wife? And then after I laughed that, he was like, "Are you putting that in the podcast?" And I was like, "Yes, absolutely."
Absolutely. Anything he says is liable to
Material.
use. Shall we move into our talking about our episode themes?
Yeah.
All right.
And I'll start with what I think was the overarching theme of the episode, which
Go
is
for it.
home for Christmas. I know, that's shocking, surprising. But, they show it in a lot of different ways. I think that, you have Michael saying home isn't a place, it's a people. Shout out for Ragnarok. Actually, I don't know the timeline on whatever. So you have...
that would have been out.
It would have been out of that time?
Okay.
Yeah.
So he's just ripping. He's just one of us. He's giving life advice via Marvel quotes. Yeah, home for Christmas. We see it in every emergency. We see it in every character, whether they are just home or if they're fighting to get there or if they're trying to figure out where home is. I think we see that with pretty much everyone. And then we also have reunions, multiple reunions as a theme under home for Christmas.
There's a lot of like coming homes, but it's also just like in general, like some people coming together. And it's also a little bit because this is Merry Xmas, like EX. So it's kind of like the impending reunion of Maddie and Doug, right?
He had to put some horror movie into the Christmas episode.
It's Tim.
He couldn't let it slide.
Are we surprised?
It would have been too wholesome without that. Oh my god.
Nothing that references any horror movies surprises me anymore in this show because that's just the Timfluence.
How he rolls.
Should be shocking when it's not there, to be honest.
Exactly.
You also have Shannon and Eddie and doing whatever it is that they're doing.
They're doing a thing.
They're doing.
Is there a word
they're
for
doing
it?
Something.
They're doing it.
We'll get to that. There's also in that same vein, there's a lot of emphasis on relationships, specifically with like relationship milestones or like the building blocks of relationships. And then with that, I think comes this element of commitment and whether someone is feeling ready to commit or if they're not necessarily a commitment phobe per se, but afraid of that commitment and what that and like the big things that it means. So that can kind of lead into this indecision and panicking, which I know you wanted to talk about as well, outside of relationship stuff too, right?
Well, yeah, I just wanted to say like that is indecision and panic definitely a theme. And I think just because this is like a subsection of relationships, I'm not looking at Maddie and Doug anymore as a relationship. Like she left him. He is now a stalker. Like you know what I mean? Like that's not a relationship. That's a crime. So I just want to say that like there is indecision and panic outside of relationship. It's trauma born from a relationship, I guess. But I don't think her indecision and panic falls under like relationship milestones and building blocks.
You mean her panic about Christmas, like celebrating Christmas. Okay. I got you now. And then there's also like this element of, again, a lot of it revolves around some sort of relationship thing, right? So there's communication is a very big thing. And we see in pretty much for almost every like character, there's like a character is being presented with some sort of surprise. So it doesn't necessarily have to be like a surprise, like a gift, but it could be surprise of information as well. And I think I'll kind of point them out as we talk about the characters because I think that would just be easier. But there's a lot of just kind of, oh, this is something that another character hasn't necessarily thought about or had assumed about someone else and all of that stuff. So that kind of goes with that communication, which connects to, you know, our theme of relationships and like being on the same page, which we have been talking about, I think, since like season 1, being on the same page. So that was an interesting, like a Christmas surprise, but they're not all like good surprises, and they're kind of just like assumptive of many a thing.
I think the last thing for me that I noticed is performing, and I'm just not going to talk about that until later because I can't say anything without getting into it.
Put a pin in that theme. We'll get to it probably where? At the end? In slow burn?
Yeah, I think a little bit in Eddie's arc and then also in slow burn. Yeah.
Cool. So just keep that in mind.
Just keep that percolating up there. Who's cooking?
Buddie.
Talking about mom and dad.
Oh, I love when we start like character arcs with like some Bobby and Athena.
It's the number 1 relationship until Chim and Maddie get together, but I mean,
I still think it's number 1 in the sense that like, well, they're top billed and they're executive producers, but also that they're literally mom and dad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I feel like everyone looks up to them in their relationship. So
they are very much like the heart of their social group.
118 extended family.
Yeah. Because like we see at the end, like everybody comes over to their or Athena's house, but maybe their house now. I don't know. And it's just like really heartwarming to see. And I mean, yeah, that's where everybody like gathers for like all of their non-station.
Yeah. With the extended family.
Yeah. I love them.
So Mr. Nash.
Mr. Nash.
Oh my God.
I never said that. I hated it the moment it came out of my mouth.
I can just see him saying that to Athena, like in one of their role plays or something.
That's mom and dad. No.
I don't need to see that or hear that.
No. Oh, God.
I am Buck.
May.
Oh, God. Oh, my God.
Literally scarred for life.
Oh, my God.
But yeah, so Bobby goes from the beginning of this episode being like on cloud 9, being so extremely happy. And then a surprise, mom comes out of left field and is like, we should live together. And then he literally just spirals for 98% of the rest of the episode.
Yeah. He really was like kind of, you know, the fight or flight or freeze. He really just kind of like,
I think it's the first time we've seen him like actually panic.
Yeah. He's usually so like cool, calm, collected. He's got everything together except for like, I mean, besides his sobriety thing from like season 1 and when they were dosed, but he wasn't panicking.
He wasn't panicking
in those times. Yeah, this is the first time like he really truly freezes, and I think it's because of the surprise. Like he just was not expecting that. And this is one of those things where I was talking about with like surprises and communication, because Athena doesn't like, she hasn't brought this up to him before. She just kind of like springs it on him, and he's unprepared for that possibility.
Yeah, I don't know if he had thought about it, because I think he's like very much happy in the bubble that they're in. And I think where we find him in his journey here, you know, like looking back a couple episodes when he was very much like trying to stand on the outskirts of the family, right? And so he finally is getting more involved in the family, but like I don't think he's thought past like where they are now. Because I don't think he still doesn't think he deserves like what he's got right now.
No, I think he is very much like in his relationship with Athena. He is very much like living in the present. Get it? Because Christmas. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry, but I think he does like
Hook sell the fuck out.
Yes.
No.
Anytime when I can take Syl out like that.
Shook her head for a solid minute and then just said no.
Pat on my back. I think I think Bobby is very much like in the present moment with Athena, as in like he isn't looking backwards at nearly as much as like because for so much of season 1 he was living in the past, right? Or he was, shall we say, stuck and not moving forward. I guess we could kind of say there's a little bit of a stickedness, because he's not like he's so much for me having the brain cell. He's not moving forward, but he's not moving backward. He's just kind of like there and not really going anywhere, right? So,
well, I think it's interesting. Like in comparison to where we were with Athena in those like beginning episodes where she kind of just didn't want to be. She wanted to live in a bubble.
Yeah.
Within their relationship. Bobby wanted to take her out and show her off and like not hide and be secretive. Now it's like, oh, how the tables have turned, kind of.
Yeah. I didn't think of that either. I didn't pick up. You're our Athena whisperer, Syl.
You are.
It's like he got her to move forward, but now it's like now he's the one stuck because I mean, yeah, like kind of what you guys said, he doesn't think he deserves it. And it's like he has something that he doesn't want to like lose. Yeah. And like, I don't know. These are, I guess, big steps. Although like when you really think about that, because he wanted to like be publicly out in their relationship. Weird wording choice that I just used there. But he wanted their relationship more public.
These are the only straight people on the show.
I know. They won't.
The only straight people who have rights.
Who want to come out.
Close enough. Welcome back, Misha Collins.
Oh, we're back in the building again.
Oh, to our listeners, if you don't know about Straight Gate, Misha Collins.
Oh yeah, if you don't go to Supernatural,
please,
you should at least go to Misha Collins for just like a what the fuck time.
That is probably the most accurate description of that.
You'll pretty much never know what's going on.
No,
because he doesn't.
Yeah. If you want someone more chaotic than Oliver Stark, Misha Collins is your guy in a different way.
Yeah.
It's kind of giving like when we're like, what is Ryan Guzman's digital footprint?
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of giving that.
Yeah.
Anyway, check out Misha Collins' endorsement.
Anyway, like I was originally saying, before I made us derail because that was all me. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So in comparison to those first couple of episodes, like Bobby again wanting their relationship to be out in public and not be so in their bubble, like it's kind of like it was just kind of weird. I understand that he's in a place where he doesn't want to lose this relationship that's very important to him, and I guess what I'm trying to say is it's just a jarring like comparison from where he was before to where he is now, where he has his reservations like Athena had her reservations. The whole moving in, like I thought you would think, I think that he'd be like, yeah, you know what? Okay. Because that's a natural progression.
Right.
Normally a longer timeline. I can't throw stones there, but normally I hear on the streets that it's a longer timeline.
To move in?
Yeah.
Well, they're also like...
Especially when there are children involved.
Yeah, but it's also like they are older, so...
Oh, I know.
I guess what I'm saying is like, first it's really like you guys start dating, then you move in. Then you go
I know what you were
to
saying.
The proposal part. But yeah, it's in terms of the length of a relationship when there are kids involved, usually that is longer.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But it was the natural progression. And I think you're bringing up a good point that I didn't even think of. So, which is like, this is such a like 180 from where she was at the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
So it seems like once she got over those hurdles, she was just like, well, this is it. Like, I'm in. So, you know, and she just loves him so much. And she always is happier when he's there and he's part of her family. So, yeah, of course, she's like, it would be great if you just didn't have to leave. Like, why are we doing that? That's stupid.
That was just like so sweet. And I love what she said to Michael about how, you know, when he's around, I'm joyful. When he's not, I'm lonely. And it was just like, that's so just like what you should kind of want in a relationship or a partnership. You want someone who makes you like the best and happiest version of yourself when you're around them and when you're with them. And she said when she's not around him, she's lonely. Meaning like he brings the sunshine into her life a little bit, but also like we've been talking about how loneliness is like a season theme that we see. So like also kind of staving off that loneliness. I don't think that Bobby doesn't feel that way. I think he very much does. And we see with the proposal that he does feel that way. I think he was just shocked about proposal of her inviting him to move in. And again, that like he's racked still with this guilt that like he's not sure that he is deserving, which makes him question whether it's like if this is something that he sees a future in, because up until like fairly recently he didn't see a future at all.
Yeah. So, well, I also think it's definitely partly like the deserving thing, but I think like mostly like we see in that talk he has with Hen, where he's like, I'm terrified. And I really think it's because he's, you know, built this family for himself and he is scared to get even closer, to get more attached, because that seems like moving in seems like, okay, this is a sign that this is permanent. Now because we share a home. You know, even though that they were already serious and committed to each other. Yeah. Moving in together is a big step up in the commitment and that milestone in a relationship. So yeah, he definitely spirals and panics because he's like, oh my God, like he has all this PTSD from
he really does.
From, you know, previously having a family and losing them. So I think it's really just a fear of
loss.
Fear of loss. Like I don't think he could handle that kind of loss again. Because he's like pulled himself up from like the depths of where he was to get to this point. And then to be standing again on the precipice of having so much like, you know, big risk, big reward sort of thing. Like if you risk it all, you risk losing it too. And he still like is so frozen in that moment with Hen because he's like, if he shows up, then she'll want an answer. And if I don't show up, then that will be an answer in and of itself. So like that. Even though she said like, I'm not pressuring you, like she was floating the idea, but in the form of asking him.
Instead of, I mean, it was, she didn't give him an ultimatum and she made it clear that she didn't. So that was like that clear communication that he needed. And I don't think he felt the pressure on there, but like, well, I guess he kind of felt like not feeling the pressure from her, but the pressure
we have
on
internal
himself.
Pressure.
Yeah. Which is again, you know, one of our season themes. And what was it at the missile drone call was really funny because you see like one of those kind of rarer moments where they're a little like bickery. It's not even like full bicker, but but because they're both there, they're kind of interpreting the events in the call from their different perspectives. And I think that does like help. It's very Bobby and Athena to like process their own emotions through the emergencies of their job. Right?
Just as an aside, that is one of my favorite things that they do on the show. And I don't think that it happens super often. Because like, I know we see it happen in every episode where like they're working through their stuff via what's happening. And sometimes they're talking to like talking it out with the person or around the person. But very rarely do we see two people who are having the issue that are related to the call and are like having this conversation.
Yeah,
that's,
going like
totally veiled, but not veiled.
like talking around their own issue.
Yeah, where they're like talking about it like it's the people that they're helping on the call, but it's actually about them. And I love when they do that because it just feels so rom-com-y.
Yeah.
Like, even if it's not a romantic thing, like, I don't know, it just feels like one of those things that's just very satisfying to me.
It's adjacent to like the miscommunication trope, right? Which is a very like rom-com sort of thing. Because like, you know, when they're listening to the girl and her boyfriend, not boyfriend, you know, kind of you know, go back and forth about that. And Bobby's like, maybe they kind of take like the different perspectives because Bobby's like, maybe she didn't want him to move on. She just needed a minute, which is him talking about himself through this other person's experience. And Athena was like, well, how was he supposed to know that? And it's just like, this is the way that I think we talk about that, or we've talked about in one of our episodes. It might have been like more of a season 7 sort of thing, but like they don't really do confrontation about their relationship very well. This is one of the instances where they kind of do, but it's still in a roundabout way. But it does get like
please pay a therapist.
It does get their like different perspectives across in a way that is like a line of open communication, but it's like it's like they're role playing in their
they like to role play
couples therapy. Oh God, that's mom and dad.
I mean, it's not my fault they keep putting it on the screen,
right?
Yeah. So I did really like that they were able to kind of confront each other about that in like an indirect way, because that does kind of like open up the other to their perspective. And Hen, of course, is just being the voice of reason here and being like, you know,
she normally is.
She's
so done too.
So she is so done with them. It's so funny.
She is so far on the pendulum, just either the exasperated friend / sister, who is the voice of reason, or is destroying her life. Like, there's no in between.
I think it's easier when it's not her life. Because she can take like that outside perspective to it, that like very logical, you know, way that she handles things. And but she makes good points. She's like, people aren't afraid of what they know, they're afraid of what they don't know. And it is hard to hand someone the keys to your heart and happiness and realize losing them might mean losing a part of yourself. So that speaks to that feeling and that fear of losing something that's so important. And I just thought that was also a very on the nose kind of way to put it.
Oh my God, Rachel.
I'm so proud. I did write that one down.
You had to write that down?
Yes, because I wanted to remember it.
Okay, that's fair.
I wrote it down for comedic timing. I succeeded.
This is not a scripted show, by the way.
There's literally no script. There is a very I'm going to say ADHD version of organized bullet lists of shit so that we just don't forget to talk about something. Because otherwise we absolutely would. Yeah.
Which is why I wrote that down, because I wanted to get it.
The only thing that's ever scripted is just the very beginning where we're talking about like whatever the episode's sponsored by.
And the calls.
Because Rachel writes those.
If you haven't realized, that's mine.
And then our sign. Oh, the punny things are yours? Shocking. Just the beginning and the end. Everything else is just natural chaos coming out of our combined brain cell.
Aren't you lucky?
Are they? Yes. We are smart. We are funny.
And
people should listen to us.
Which does really contradict our other motto of who cares, but you know, we contain multitudes.
Time and place, we do.
Yeah.
You know?
Anyways, So after all of that, like, contemplation of, like, fear of losing things and kind of, like, understanding maybe a little where the other's coming from, Bobby goes from 0 to 100 in, like, 60 seconds. And I think this also comes from his conversation with Hen, where she tells him, again, voice of reason, if you don't see a future, don't pretend that you do. So, like, don't keep stringing anyone or yourself along. So Bobby takes like 0.2 seconds to think about, do I see a future with Athena? Yes. So then he goes out and he buys a key thing, buys a ring, proposes, and it's just like, you want to talk about like feeling too fast. Like, this is this is kind of like shoes on the other foot, because now Athena is like, what?
But in a good way. So it's like, I feel like he took the same journey, right? Where like
Yeah.
we talked about, so had us start that conversation about how like she came from being like, I don't really know about like where this is going to go. Cause I don't think that I can like go public with this because she was scared. Because she was scared to like
To lose it.
to lose. So it's the same fear. It's just the same journey. He just speed ran that shit. He speed ran that shit and he passed her level.
He one up her. He was like,
He said, "You want to move in together? Well, I'm Catholic. We can't live in sin." It's different when we're not living together, you know? It's not living in sin.
No, that's
so good.
That's exactly what happened. He's like, well, do I see a future together with her? Yes, of course. So
I think I'm the resident religious trauma person. So
must get married.
I completely forgot about that. You can't be living together without being married. Actually, you can't be doing anything without being married.
Well,
no. I mean, it depends on who you ask, what you can do.
I mean, Bobby doesn't do anything by half measures, right?
No, his son is exactly the same way.
The apple doesn't fall far from the tree, huh?
Okay. The scene, the engagement scene, you guys, it makes me cry every single time. It makes me cry every single time. It's just so sweet. And I love that he put this whole like long thing together that he like wanted to say to her. And she was like, shut the fuck up. Yes. Like,
yeah. Oh, it was so cute.
But you know, the part that he does get out, part of it is that like he wants everything with her, not just this one next step. He wants all the steps. You know, they both know because of their lines of work and what they've been through in life, because, you know, they've both lost like literally significant others, you know, so they both know how short and precious life can be.
Yeah.
And that, you know, whatever your timeline may be. Yeah. So like if you feel something and you're like ready to do it, then
jump.
Like then jump. Yeah. Like whose timeline are you like being beholden to? So I think it's so quintessentially them.
Yeah. Athena even does like apologize, you know, before he goes into his whole speech, and she's like, she shouldn't have sprung that. She wasn't thinking, but Bobby
she spooked him.
Yeah, she thinks she spooked him, but Bobby was like, no, but you were saying what you were feeling and you were speaking from your heart, and he really appreciates that. And then Athena was so nervous that Bobby wasn't on the same page with her, and that's why she got like self-conscious about it. But then he says basically, you know, he declares his love much in the same way that she declared it, like when she was speaking to Michael. And it's like, when you find someone who fills your heart with happiness and hope for the future and faith in yourself, and that's everything that Bobby has needed. And just the fact that like he gets all of that from Athena is just really lovely and beautiful, and they're made for each other and meant to be. And any trouble that they go through is minimal compared to like how much love that they have for each other, and how much like they strive and fight for each other and for their relationship. It's lovely.
Yeah.
I wrote down, he really did just need a minute.
Did he literally just say, did he literally say need a minute?
During the call, he was like, "Ooh."
But were those the words?
No.
I don't think he said it, but when he was interpreting the girl at the restaurant, and he was like, maybe she just needed a minute. So it came out of his mouth. But
Looks at Athena.
Interesting.
But he was
Where else do we hear that?
projecting. I know. That's why I wrote it down.
Oh, those Bobby Eddie parallels.
Mhm.
I love the Bobby Eddie parallels so much, and I love like the Athena Buck parallels, and it's just like, anyways,
It's been too long since I've had a Buck and Athena scene, by the way.
which we do kind of get a little itty bitty one, and I did love how far they've also come since like the beginning of season 1, where it was like kind of antagonistic, and
Mhm.
and Athena's like, you're always welcome. That is her acknowledging Buck as Bobby's son.
I know.
Yeah.
And for Bobby to have moved in with Athena, and for Bobby to accept like May and Harry and everything like that, this is like the final little piece in their family unit, right?
Mhm.
Like,
You know,
Buck is always welcome because Buck is basically like her stepson.
if they ever
now.
actually communicate that to each other, that would be the final piece. But yeah.
Yeah.
Non-verbally, the final piece.
Yeah.
They've said it behind each other's backs a bunch of times.
Mm-hmm. Oh, they're so cute. It makes me so happy.
They're very cute. I love mom and dad. I love that mom and dad are where everyone gathers, and that everyone, well, minus Madney, are there.
Yeah.
You know?
Where they should be.
Yeah.
It's where they all belong.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Why did I just think that they're like the nucleus of like their... I was
They
trying
are
to think
the
of like
center.
the center, like the heart, like the hearth.
They are
Like
the
the
hearth.
core.
Yes, that
Yeah.
makes more sense. I mean, I know you're getting out the nucleus, but yeah, the hearth.
Who's
Yes.
the mitochondria of the cell? Who's the mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell? Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Oh, okay, here we go. So like when Buck shows up at the Grant Nash joint family holiday celebration, you know, Athena asks about Maddie, and Buck is like, she's having a different kind of Christmas this year. And we kind of, looking at Maddie and Chimney's arc in this episode is kind of interesting.
So they're still dancing around each other, right? They're still doing that, like, we're dating, but we're not saying that we're dating.
It's like and there we have more like communication stuff. Like they are kind of on the same page, but they're not communicating it.
Mhm.
Yeah. But basically, I think, does this start in the Christmas tree lot? Like where their arc kind of
Yeah.
starts?
Uh-huh.
So it starts out with Chimney wanting to do something special for her because it's her first Christmas. He tries to like play it off like, oh, with everyone like like there, but he's like, with me as friends. But yeah, so he really wants to like do this nice special surprise for her because Chimney is very romantic. He is very romantic, and he, you know, tries to soak up every little bit of Maddie lore as, you know, as possible. And
That's cute.
I think that Buck, like by nature of Buck being there to help with the tree, means that Buck told him that she loves Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why they're there.
Yeah. It's giving very brothers-in-law like very early, and
well, they're
like,
already brothers.
Yeah, they're already brothers. Like that's the relationship that Buck has with Chimney. But it's like, it's sweet that like Buck is helping Chimney out with like trying to do something nice for Maddie. And, you know, and Chimney, dear sweet superstitious Chimney, is basically looking for signs, right? And we get some, I guess you could say, bad omens. Because this is where Doug, quote unquote, Jason Bailey shows up, you know, as this little like Christmas angel to help out, but it's really nefarious.
Right. So for someone who's so, what's the word that I want to use? I don't know what word I want to use to describe him, but like the fact that
people oriented, or
I guess people oriented. Sure.
He loves people.
He likes people. Sure. Let's go with that.
He's a very friendly person.
I know okay, so I think that's what I want to say. So for someone who's like, I understand that he's like a very friendly person, but I think, I don't know, where was Chimney's alarm bells, right? Like, how could you not think it's so suspicious that the same man just showed up?
It's a little weird.
It's just talking to you. I don't know.
He's from LA, right?
Who?
Yes.
Chimney?
Yes.
Okay. This might be an inherent West versus East Coast thing, too. Or maybe Northeast. I don't know about, like, because I think the South is friendlier or, like, faux friendlier. But it's like,
Not in
here,
South Florida.
if a stranger's trying to talk to me, I'm like, what do you want?
Yeah.
I'm immediately suspicious.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
Well, I mean,
so the first time I visited the West Coast, and LA was the first stop, like I went the whole way up the coast, I was like, why the fuck is everyone talking to me? And not just like polite small talk. Like, what is wrong with people here? So, yeah, that might just be his inherent, like, he's just friendly. His like natural setting is to trust people until proven otherwise, versus being suspicious until proven that you can be trustworthy.
And he does also, like I said, he does very much like believe in this concept of signs. And so if the same person is showing up just like happenstance and has already in his mind like proven to be a nice, helpful person, like he's gonna see that as like a divine
sign to trust.
Yeah, like a divine intervention sort of thing. Like, just he has a lot of faith in the universe, I think, and it might also be kind of stemming from a lot of his love for movies and TV, you know, because it's all very like divined in that way. Because also, like, if he's a big movie buff, he's gonna know, like, you know, the It's a Wonderful Life. Absolutely. And this whole idea of like having a Clarence look out for him, or a guardian angel kind of look out for him. He's going to, especially in the spirit of Christmas, like kind of lean into that a little more than some of our other characters would.
This would really help if we had sorted his astrology, but we haven't at this point. Because water signs are not trusting people.
Oh, he's not a water sign.
No. So Syl and I,
Gemini.
Stop.
I'm right.
I have no stake in. I have no stakes in this game. I'm not playing.
Yeah,
we'll
talk about it later. We'll talk about it later. But yeah, he definitely is a trusting person until, you know, proven otherwise. We're like, compare him. The best person I can think of is Eddie, who was like, trust no bitch. So he's like, oh my God, like, you are my guardian angel. Just like Rachel said, like, he would see that as he's seeing things as good signs, unless it's a crow.
Oh, yeah.
Well, there's something that he's like, I have to think about because the internet has mixed reviews.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, he very much does see things as like a good omen or kind of a bad omen. And if he has experience with something being a bad omen, it's gonna kind of scar him for life. But like, if he has, I think he does like take a lot of his experiences and uses that to inform his opinions. And if it was like a good kind of experience, then he's going to take it in a positive sign kind of way. So I think it's just the way that he like processes information in that kind of sense. Does that make sense? It's just, for Syl and I, were like, could not be us.
Yeah, I was like, why are we so jaded?
I choose to not see it as jaded.
You're just more hesitant to.
I just think that trust needs to be earned, not given.
Yeah.
Well, okay, I'm gonna say a thing and then we should get back to it. But like, yes, you can be like, because Rachel and TJ and my best friend are very much, I'm speaking for you, but like,
that's fine,
are very much the opposite of us, right? Where they're like, they don't implicitly trust, right? But there's like a baseline level of trust, just like, because they're like, people are good overall, right? And that's fine. That's a fine point of view, but it doesn't mean that like when they are forming a relationship and a bond with someone who works differently, that person owes them that kind of trust in return. Like, they have to respect that that's not how everyone works.
Right. That's
And
how
if you don't,
that's how I
you don't
operate.
have a friendship. I don't know.
That's how I operate. It's like, I know I have a baseline, just like that was actually kind of like really accurate. I personally have a baseline. Like everybody starts at, this level and they can go up
or
they can go down. But I know that like other people don't operate that, and you have to start from like 0 and work your way up. But I start at like, 50. if we're going like not necessarily
so,
that
like,
much, but like you have to start from like the ground level and go up. Whereas like I'm already on the 3rd story
also,
or whatever.
Yeah.
If you don't respect that, that's not how earning trust works for me, then that's suspicious.
Yeah.
Like if you're upset that you have to earn my trust, that's suspicious.
No, and that's warranted to for someone to be like I go into every, I guess, like friendship being like, I have to, well, not really, but like prove, endear, but like kind of work my way up to that for the other person, which is not necessarily like how it would be the opposite way. Like if you were coming to me, I would just be like, yes, we're friends. Yes, I trust you because I have no reason not to. So
yeah, and then the longer you know someone and get to know them, the more you trust them.
Yeah.
I was also gonna add my vibe checks.
Yeah,
there's also that, but sometimes people can get through them.
That's true.
They can get through them, but
it's always the fucking narcissist, man.
Because they know how to manipulate the system.
I can sniff those fuckers out now, though. I've had enough of them. I don't know why I said that like I'm bragging.
It's a skill that you need to, like,
I've been manipulated by so many people. Yeah.
Unfortunately, I'm sorry.
Yeah, vibe checks don't always work. It's not a foolproof system.
No.
And sometimes you're put into situations where you have to like try and ignore the vibe check that doesn't get passed.
Yeah.
That's a good point too.
I think I'm usually right when I can sense something negative. That's where I'm right. But when I'm like, when they pass the vibe check because they do have like this outer persona that they usually present to the world, that's when it's like, okay, they passed my vibe check because they just had that whole mask on, and then you get to know them, and then just
they have the cheat codes.
And you have to dig. When it's only when you dig deeper that kind of facade like gets broken down.
Like you start seeing little things. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the point of that kind of mask, is to get past those vibe checks. So it's not your fault.
Honestly, I feel like relevant to Maddie and Doug. Well, and Chimney. Like in general, that's why we're talking about it.
Well, you know who else had like also vibe check? Buck never liked Doug.
No.
And he has made that clear from the very beginning. Like when he, from the first episode of the season, when he was like, wow, you finally did it. You left him. Like he's just been kind of waiting for that, because he is such like an intuitive, right? That his guard was up about Doug from the very beginning. And that is interesting, I guess, then to compare that with Chimney. I mean, again, they're obviously like different people, and Chimney was under the impression that this person was completely someone else. But that's also because Doug was purposely putting on that facade, that mask, to lead Chimney down this very specific path of what he wanted, which is also like, I think it's fair to say like Doug is like a narcissist as well, right? So he knows how to get past those vibe checks because he knows how to endear himself to people because that's how he manipulates. So unfortunately, Chimney, it's just a little easier to manipulate because he's so trusting, but that's what makes him an easy target, and probably why Doug pinned him in the first place, because he would have had to already be around and kind of be doing like the stalkery thing.
And scoping things out. I was thinking, because you said that like we see Buck continually talk about like how much he hates him. I don't remember if you said it, but like when Maddie is telling him about the abuse, she says the things that you noticed about him even as a kid. So he wasn't passing the vibe check even from adolescent Buck.
Yeah. And that probably also speaks to Buck's character as well, because he learned from a young age that like he couldn't inherently trust people like that, because like the people
that you're supposed to trust,
rely on, his parents, aren't going to follow through. And also the people that he did trust, Maddie, are gonna leave him anyway. So he would automatically like have those walls up anyways, like from a very young age. So he's like perceptive like that. But Chimney, he just wants to see like the good in people, because he is a good people. And even though he's been disappointed by others, I think he still generally like has a, like you said, a baseline that you can just like build up or deteriorate, but like just generally like you start off at, more than ground level and work your way to more trust, sort of thing.
But I think it's interesting if you look at how Maddie and Buck were both raised by the same parents. I mean, like Maddie had different parents, basically. We think for the first couple, however
like
many years
9,
of her life,
10 something years,
right? But then she went through the same kind of neglect, and then she was parentified, and all of these things. So because of how her experience was different with the same parents, Doug was able to take advantage of that and manipulate her based on
that,
the trauma she had from that, to like fill in the gaps that she, was missing.
And I know we're talking a lot about stuff that isn't explicit in this episode, but more later on. But like, I think it is a good point to, again, that difference between like Buck being able to see that more clearly and Maddie not. And I think that does kind of go back to the fact that the earlier parts of her life, like she would have developed that kind of like trusting of people, so like I think she is kind of like Chimney in that way as well, where like she probably also has like a baseline, and you work up and you work your way down, but you start at like a higher level just like anyways, and it's up to the other person to like, dictate whether that whether that trust goes up or down. And again, with a narcissist, they know how to manipulate that, and Doug would have like caught on to
and
that.
Narcissists love empathetic people,
which Maddie cries every day at work. She's the most empathetic.
Well, yeah. And I think Chimney is empathetic too.
Absolutely.
It's more insular, but you know what I mean? I feel like they can sniff it out.
Yeah. Almost like it's not a weakness, but like they have that kind of like detector.
Oh, sorry. I just got like feel gross feeling about him like watching the 118 and like scoping out who he wanted to like use as an in.
Yeah. And it's also interesting too that he didn't use Buck because he would have recognized Buck, right? But he also
knows Buck hates him. Does not trust him.
He knows Buck hates him, but he also so when they're at the tree lot, I know we're still there. Doug waits until Buck walks away to come up to Chimney, because he also knows Buck, and he knows Buck would recognize him. So he has to be so strategic and it could so easily be like a close call, like Buck comes back and then all of a sudden it's like, wait, I know you. And then the jig would have been up. But and that just goes to show like how like manipulative, nefarious, like villainous. We don't get a lot of villains in 911, but Doug is absolutely like the villain.
I feel like he's the villain. Yeah.
He is the big bad. So it just like shows how much premeditation is part of this whole scheme of his as well. And even to like show up again when Chimney is renting Die Hard and swipes his wallet right out from Chimney's nose, which like is kind of impressive, like, but I guess because he's a doctor or a surgeon, right? So I guess he has to have like nimble fingers.
Two different pickpockets in this episode.
What was the second one?
The bus.
Oh my gosh. Wait, that's so interesting. From the guy on the bus, right?
I don't know what the connection would be. Well, that guy was shady.
I mean, I guess
almost died.
I guess it's people picking up on the vibe checks, right?
Maybe.
It's the awful people thing. That's what it is. It's the awful people because the Marine, confronts the guy pickpocketing on the bus and, says to give it back, but ends up still saving his life because the pickpocket was the one that like got the glass in the carotid artery. So the Marine is also kind of very much like Maddie with Gloria, right? So like someone who was a bad person, an awful person, yet you're still going to like do your job and do the right thing and help them out or save them their lives. That is the connection.
So I want to steer us back on the track.
Sorry.
It's okay.
It just clicked.
We were all participants in that derailment. Fun, interesting.
Hey, but we brought it
should
back.
Get back on track. We did. Look at us go. It's like there's a loose outline so we don't forget.
Magic.
So yeah, I think touching on him trying to surprise Maddie.
Yeah.
With this tree, and Buck goes with him and she's like, I don't have any. She's trying to like gently refuse the tree, I think. But and like they're like, we thought of everything. Yeah. And so they are not picking up the vibes from her, speaking of vibes. And then we see her yell at Buck, and like we see them like fighting. We hear them fighting, and I'm like, we don't hear this a lot. No. So it's really interesting because I feel like Buck, especially with her, would try to de-escalate in that kind of situation, but he hates Doug so fucking much and is like, he took his sister from him for so many years, and he did fucking horrible things to her for that entire time, and he
really hates how much Doug has taken from Maddie, because he knows, like, Buck knows how much Maddie loves Christmas. It's obvious. They wouldn't have gone through all of that trouble if she didn't. And just to see her kind of, I mean, they're still, again, learning each other and learning how to navigate their sibling relationship now. And he's so frustrated and angry and upset that, this awful person ruined something that made Maddie so happy. And it's just another reason to hate Doug, but because Maddie is so kind of like on the defensive, she doesn't de-escalate with Buck, and she really like lashes out, which we don't see very often at all.
No,
this might be the only time.
No, because I think she was very triggered by it.
Yeah.
So she was not in a situation where she, I think, felt comfortable to like talk about why she didn't want to.
Fresh.
Yes. She just wanted it to not be confronted with it anymore. Especially because Buck was trying to push the issue. So I think it's really sweet that we do see that she does open up about it at the end, and it's with Chimney.
Yeah. And I think that really drives home, because they only met in 206, right? So like 4 episodes prior, and there was kind of like this instant connection. And it was setting up Chimney as this like very safe place because he was setting up her security system and everything. And he continues to be that for her, which is really lovely. Like, it's that through line. And Chimney even says, like, Christmas is supposed to be safe. He says safe first, safe and warm with the people you care about most. That is the gift. So that's another example of like people, like home, and the gift is people. And he's like, it doesn't have to be perfect. And when I'm getting goosebumps. Like,
I know
when Maddie says that she got the tree, which I'm assuming is the tree that he left.
Yeah, it's the tree.
And she's like, it's not perfect, but she tried. And Chimney is like, it doesn't have to be perfect. He says it's beautiful. And I love this moment because it's that classic, again, another like rom-com thing, because he's like, he's behind her, so she's not looking at him. But he's like, yeah, it's beautiful. But he's looking at her. And it's the cutest thing. Oh my gosh. And it just makes me warm and fuzzy. And it's so adorable because you're going from especially with the flashback that happens like right after this, and the absolute like horror of the reality of what Maddie's life was like with Doug and on that
Mhm.
Christmas a year ago, and where he's talking about like it's not perfect. You'll get it. You'll get it perfect one day. And to have that just completely juxtaposed with the warmth and safety and understanding that Chimney has just like inherently, that it doesn't have to be perfect and all you have to do is be safe and with the people you love. This is why Chimney and Maddie work so well, because
Mhm.
they bring out the things in each other that they're not lacking, but that they
That they both
need to be brought out.
value. Yeah.
Ugh, and it's really I really love that rom-com moment.
It's really sweet. And I think it's really sweet that he just continually just like tries to anticipate
Her
what
needs.
she needs, and he's just very gentle and thoughtful.
Very giving.
Yeah, and knowing, especially trying to be careful because of what she's been through.
Yeah.
So I love how much it shows about him as like a person and a partner, that he continues to.
And it shows how much he's grown
Yeah.
too, because he is being wholly himself
Mhm.
with Maddie, which is, we've seen him grow from season 1 up until now and feel more complete within himself, but he was still searching for like, you know, someone else to what does Bobby say? Like someone who brings happiness and hope for the future
Mhm.
and faith in themselves, and I feel like Maddie and Chimney do that for each other
Yeah, absolutely.
so wonderfully, and it's like it feels like they have a fairly effortless connection in that way, that it just falls into place
I think we talked about the flashback already.
a little bit. But there was one thing with when Maddie is like picking this stuff off the floor and she sees the postcard
Oh,
from
yeah.
Buck, and
Yeah.
that's a nice like tie back to
Him sending the postcards, yeah.
when we're introduced to Maddie and Buck was like, I sent postcards and I never got anything back. And we'll also see like, further down the line how significant those postcards and that lifeline that Maddie had to Buck really is. So like it's really interesting to see like in the moment, because she like picks it up and looks at it, and I think that's kind of where she makes her decision to
Mhm.
leave,
Mhm.
but then she also like hides it and
Hides
puts it
it,
in her pocket.
protects him. Yeah.
She protects him, but she also like uses that as like her armor to protect herself a little
Mhm.
bit, which you know, from like that point to knowing now like that she ended up going to see Buck in the first place is great. And like that's what she needed. And now look at all this stuff, the good stuff happening for her. I know we'll go through like bad stuff, but it's mostly
Yeah, we
good.
gotta.
Yeah.
Florbos have to go through bad things.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I think I just had one more thing I wanted to just like briefly touch on when Chimney is at the movie rentals and Doug shows up and they're talking about Die Hard, right? Which I don't know, in my opinion, definitely a Christmas movie. I'm with Chimney there. And Doug's talking about how he sees Die Hard as a movie about a guy just trying to keep his marriage together
Uh-huh.
with terrorists.
Hmm.
And I'm like, hmm, because
Interesting.
in his world, right, he is also just trying to keep his marriage
Yeah.
together. However, he is also the terrorist
Yeah.
to his own marriage in this case. So, and he also very much sees himself as like McClane in Die Hard, because he's like McClane, like the guy won his wife back in the end. So he's very much like putting himself in this like hero position, and that's not going to work. So he's
No.
delusional and narcissistic.
They normally are.
They normally are. So I just thought that was like a very interesting, like it the little crumbs are there before the
Yeah.
reveal, right?
Yeah. They did a good job with that.
Yeah.
Okay. Are we ready?
You think so?
Are we ready for Eddie?
Are we ready? Freddie? Mercury? I miss you. Oh man, next week.
Oh my God, we only have one more week.
I know.
It wasn't even real in the last one.
I know. I'm so mad about that. I'm like,
I find that
I can't
so
believe
funny.
they hyped this mustache up so much for it to like not be real for most, if not all of that episode. And
it was not real in any of that episode. I looked at the shape of it.
And
I did not look that closely.
Oh, that was just a me thing? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I know, it just makes me so like, because I'm like in mourning already.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to post like the in memoriam
Hot take that we may or may
mustache.
not leave in this or put anywhere. Rachel and I don't know where Syl
Probably
lands
did.
on this scale.
Oh, sorry.
We think he looks better with the mustache.
Not many people can pull off a mustache and pull it off well.
It balances his face. It enhances his features. The only thing that I like more than the mustache is like his nice stubble from like season 2.
And I would go mustache, beard, stubble, clean shaven. I know Syl has different opinions.
I always forget about beard because they're never gonna let Eddie have one to be too powerful.
Oh, I know. I mean, for Eddie, obviously, but I'm just talking about
for
like
Ryan
on this man's face.
Or yeah, Ryan. Yeah, I think for me, beard, stubble, mustache, clean shaven.
Mustache.
I'm just not. No, not for me. For you, yes. I just don't like clean shaven in general.
Doesn't do anything.
Let them have let men have stubble. 2K24.
Infinity. But yeah, I really love how you asked a rhetorical question that one time over DMs, and I was like, I have answers. It's aesthetically pleasing and it balances because of the dark and the light. Blah, 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 blah. And the shadows and not that
Syl
I spent any time
so
thinking
quiet
about that at all.
Syl, do you have opinions on this?
I don't. I think it's just a matter of I've seen him clean shaven a lot. I've seen him with mustache a lot. When it comes to beard, I think I've only seen it a couple times, and I think I need to see more of that before I can give him a ranking. Give that a ranking. So as far as ranking goes, controversial hot take, unpopular opinion. I think.
Say it with your chest.
My God, Syl.
We know what you think. It's fine.
Yeah, so I do like him clean shaven. And then from there it's like, I don't know, stubble and mustache are. No, actually I think I do like the mustache. I think it's like clean shaven, mustache, stubble. And then I don't know where to go with the beard at this point.
Well, he's got like 2.5 months to.
Opinions may change depending on
I just
exposure.
think it's a crime that they introduced his character with this perfect stubble that fucking contours his face perfectly.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
and then they were like,
the makeup
and now
of the face for men, right?
It literally is. And I'm like, and then they were like, how about he is just going to be clean shaven forever now?
No.
And hate crimed us with the buzz cut and clean shaven.
He did end up having a lot of stubble in season 3, though.
He had points.
Buzz cut. He had buzz cut and stubble, right?
Yeah, because it migrated from the top of his head to the bottom of his face to make up for the lack of volume.
I know this is unpopular. I think this is the unpopular one. Well, okay, that one's one of the unpopular Eddie looks, but I think season 4 and intro to season 5, I think that's also another unpopular Eddie look, but I find that
those don't get enough love.
So endearing.
Yeah.
It's like
he
looks like a pretty princess.
Yeah.
Prince.
He does.
Look. His little prince look, because he's got the
the little part, and it's just like,
yeah.
No, it's very underrated.
But I can't go. I hate his season 3 look. Sorry.
It's not that he looks bad.
No,
he doesn't look bad ever.
Nope.
Yeah. But it's just that I'm attached to him having the longer hair, especially when it falls in his face.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, that
The
just
season
does
8
things
little like
to my
forehead
brain.
tendril.
When it made its first cameo appearance in 710, I was like, you need to stay. I don't know how. I don't know why. Just take the gel away and let that little curl just
They heard
hang
us.
out.
ABC, you heard us. You heard our cries for help to ban the hair gel, and you listened. Very important opinions.
Okay.
I don't know.
Anyway,
Horny hour has closed.
We already did an Eddie transition like 20 minutes ago.
We did?
I said, are we ready for Eddie?
Oh, I forgot.
Oh, Eddie, Freddie Mercury, mustache.
Yeah,
That's how
and
we
then
got-
that's,
Yeah.
yeah, Rachel,
my fault.
good job.
Well, it is horny hours for Eddie.
I know it is. It is.
Well,
As always.
All right. Who wants to start with this mess?
you can go for it, Phil, if you want.
I don't want to talk about horny hours with Eddie and Shannon. It's gross.
I think they're really cute.
I think they're
No.
cute as friends, but the
Well, I think I just like the chemistry between Ryan and Devin.
It's true. It's so true. Okay. Yeah.
That is really enjoyable for me to watch, like them play off each other. I think that works very well.
Horny hours for Eddie. That's it.
I don't even think it's horny hours. This
No.
is Eddie avoiding. It's avoiding hours.
It's Eddie shield time hours, I guess. Avoiding all the things.
He cannot make a decision about letting her see Chris because he doesn't trust her to stay in his life. Rightfully so.
Mhm.
Doesn't want to confuse him. Rightfully
Understandably.
so.
Yeah.
But ends up confusing himself.
Yeah. Because he was
Really
trying
big.
to use it as like a distract. Because I'm sure she was like, when can I see Chris? When can I see Chris? And he was like, well, she'll shut the fuck up if I sleep with her.
If I occupy her
It's
mouth.
like it's so funny how we get here. You know, we're here. We want to talk about things, but we
She
always
was like,
end up in bed together.
Uh-huh.
I wonder
She's
why.
like, it's so
how
funny.
does it happen?
it's like,
Yeah.
oh, it's almost like he's doing it on
Purpose.
Yeah, and he's all just like really just kind of trying to brush it off like it's a different way of working things out. And it's like it's a
Mhm.
good way to not confront stuff.
Mhm.
Eddie. And just like when I was watching this again, I was just like I think it might be like a sense memory sort of thing because it opens up with them, you know, in the aftermath, the afterglow, I guess. And all I could think of was the Bad Omen song by 5 Seconds of Summer that's used in like so many edits.
Mhm.
Like some of those really good edits where it's like we go around again, we jump
Oh.
back in bed, and I'm just like, yeah, that's
Mhm.
this.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. I just thought it was interesting. They're like the opposite side of the bed. Like they are
Yeah,
on
they're
the
upside
foot of the
down.
bed. They are upside down. Things are not right side up.
It's almost like that was an intentional choice.
Yeah, because we also see that again, just like bring it very forward. We do see like the one time him and Marisol in season 7 are intimate is like beat for beat the same kind of
Oh
shot
my God.
here where it's like they're just finishing or they're just catching their breath
Mhm.
and they are also again on the foot of the bed, and it's just kind of like you want to talk about like hamster wheel of relationships, like it's that same thing, but it's interesting that if we had a nickel, like
Oh
it's
my God.
interesting that it happened twice, like you know. So that leads me to think that there is something to that. I don't necessarily know that like we can pin that down at the moment,
I
but
don't
just
think
like
it's that deep. I think it's just.
but just like an interesting parallel. I don't know.
I think it's something that's just there because your brain will look at that and be like, well, that's wrong.
Mm.
That's not where you're supposed to lay on the bed.
And I'm just like, is it supposed to imply like a feeling of wrongness?
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe they just
Or
like to do
is it
freaky
supposed
shit.
Yeah, or
You
is
can
it
do freaky
supposed to
shit
just be like
with your head,
implication
not where
of,
your
like,
feet normally go.
I mean,
Just saying.
I mean, I guess you could, there's something to like the head over heels, but like that's obviously not really applicable in this
Is the
situation.
head over the heels in the room with us?
We're so good. Yeah, so he is like, "Yeah, I feel pretty good about how all of that went down." And it's like, "No, honey, you're just distracting yourself and her to like
Mhm.
cover up what you don't want to deal with." It is like just repress, repress, repress.
Mhm.
I don't want to have this conversation, so we're going to like,
Mhm.
meow,
And I think
you
the
know.
rest of what I have to say about that specifically is going in scene dissection
Mhm.
/ slow burn.
Yeah. I do like though that we are able to see like their connection and the rapport that they have with each other, which is
Yeah, they're
really,
best friends.
yeah, you can really see how they would have
They
gotten.
really care about each other for
Yeah.
sure.
And
And they have good chemistry, but
I know I'm just saying I like that. I like when we can see, you know, a character like someone come back from a character's past and you're able to see kind of like how differently they act a little bit because there is that like shared history there, and you can understand why they got along, why they became like why they are best friends, why they tried to have anything more than that. And like at this point, like Shannon kind of knows Eddie more than anyone. It really kind of like throws a wrench in this compartmentalization that we keep seeing coming up because, you know, from the get-go, Eddie was trying to compartmentalize his life, work and home. And then the work kind of blended in with the home when he brought Christopher to the station, but he's still trying to have that separation between like work and Chris and Shannon. And then she just kind of like throws a metaphorical grenade on everything. It just gets so messy. And but I do like seeing that like shared history that they have, and it makes sense why they would have been together.
Mhm.
What were you laughing about? Were you laughing?
because you started off that whole that whole thing by saying, "I really like seeing a character come back from their past and show how they've changed." So I started laughing, thinking about Redacted.
Got it. I wasn't getting it. We can talk about how Eddie is like asking Chris, what he wants for Christmas because he won't tell him, and the whole like does Chris think Santa is real comes up a couple times, and it's really sweet because we see again that like, remember that introduction that we got to Christopher when he's like, do dogs think that people are just bigger dogs or something like that? So
Mhm.
we really see like that childlike wonder is highlighted again with Chris because he's just like, he's so pure and he's so wholesome and he has so much faith in Santa Claus, right? And he talks about how like what Shannon was telling Eddie about, one time Christopher asked for Eddie to come back for Christmas and Santa brought him to him, Santa. Um and just kind of like how Christopher is like wants that same thing again. And I think Eddie was kind of taken aback by that. He was surprised by
Mhm.
Christopher divulging that information because I think Christopher was like really, really young. Like,
Mhm.
like we know he was under 4, right? So it's kind of surprising that I think it just took Eddie aback that like Chris really held on to that kind of memory, which makes sense because it would have been a really good one because he asked for his dad to come home for Christmas and then he came home for Christmas. And like Santa worked his magic. So like why wouldn't he believe in this kind of like Christmas miracle?
Yeah, but I also think, like, it has to do with, like, he's asking for something that he didn't think was going to happen. Like, it's like a big wish kind of
Mhm.
thing. So, like,
Mm.
he's asking for Eddie to come back, and he did, but I guess it's, like, the timing, it's like, "Whoa," you know? And the other thing is that you're wishing for you as a kid, you're not wishing for toys and all that stuff, you're wishing for your
Yeah.
parent to come back. So, I think that's also why he was, like, taken aback. He's like, "Oh, that's a big." big meaningful wish.
Also because I think Eddie tells Shannon that like he doesn't ask about her as much anymore, right? Because it's been a while, so he doesn't ask about Shannon a lot.
Yeah. So the fact that like Chris just like kind of apropos of nothing, right? Like brings it up on himself, like on his own, means that like maybe he does think about, you know what? I think this indicates that Chris does think about his mom a lot more than he lets on. And I'm wondering if a lot of that is because we know he is a perceptive kid. And I'm wondering if he doesn't bring it up as much anymore because
it made Eddie sad.
Because it's hurtful to his dad and he doesn't want his dad to be sad or feel bad.
Well, and we have precedent for that in the future.
Exactly. So that really makes it like even more have so much more weight that like, you know, after Christopher wasn't going to say anything, right? But then only when Eddie prompts him with like, you know, a Christmas wish isn't like a birthday wish. You can tell someone. And it's that like element of magic again, right? That Chris obviously very much has like that kind of faith in that he divulges that. And yeah, I think that just like bowls Eddie over. Just kind of like this has a lot more weight than he was imagining, which also could be why Chris wasn't telling him what he wanted for Christmas in the first place. Cause I think he said earlier in the episode from the scene where he's putting Chris to bed that like Chris still won't tell me what he wants for Christmas. It's because Chris doesn't feel like he can tell him, which is also so this whole admittance of wanting his mom back and wanting Santa to bring her back to him is probably also just like another chink in Eddie's armor for him thinking that like he's a failure of a father because he's trying so hard to provide like a good example for his son, very different to the way that he grew up. And yet still you have Christopher like holding something back for like a good
for different reasons.
For a good
it's
reason.
Not out of fear, it's out of love.
Like empathy,
right?
Yeah.
Love and care, yeah.
But I'm sure Eddie sees that and is like, "Oh my god, I'm a failure because he's keeping things bottled up just like me." So that just got way more sad than I ever thought it was watching the episode.
It's Eddie's section. It's always sad.
Anyway, like father, like son.
When TJ and I were watching the episode, and it's the bedroom scene where he's like, and I asked Santa for you to come home, and he did. I was like, damn, Santa shot him. I didn't know Santa did Christmas like that. Like,
oh my god! Listen.
Wow.
Chris didn't specify how he got home. Oh no.
Yeah.
Oof. That's even worse now.
But yeah, to Chris, I mean, it wasn't like, oh, my dad was hurt. It was like, I asked for my dad to come home and
it's
he
a
came
Christmas
home.
miracle.
Like, it's not the how. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because he's still a baby. He's still a little kid. So, yeah, I don't know. Eddie is just a fucking mess.
So with all of what Christopher has said about like his wish for, you know, Shannon to come home for Christmas, essentially, that is very much playing in Eddie's head during the entire scene with the bus accident and the Marine. And Eddie is very much seeing like this like dual kind of mirror of him. I think a little bit of himself in the Marines, same position as someone who was in the army and did have like one of those, you know, coming homes, but also, you know, twisting it a little bit to, you know, imagine Shannon in that role. And then, you know, it's what the kid really wants. And so I think Eddie very much understands from a first person point of view, the importance of being there for a loved one or your child. And from seeing it from a complete like third person outsider perspective, but then relating it to his own experience, he's able to really tap into another season theme, that empathy, and I think put himself in the shoes of either Christopher or Shannon, and maybe like a little bit of selflessness and like, okay, maybe I can provide that kind of reunion for my son, you know. And he does tear up when he sees the reunion.
Allegedly.
No, at the play, at the recital.
Oh, at the play? Yes, he does
Yeah.
tear up.
Yeah, it's
Like visibly.
It took me
it's
a
like
second.
so like because Buck's always like, oh man, those videos on YouTube
God.
always make me cry, and he just like is very, you know, being Buck, very like
Actually crying.
actually crying, very like outwardly like emotive, right? And he's just like wiping his little tear.
He's like,
And-
see, I told you.
He's like, oh, it got me good. Which honestly same.
Yeah.
Like when we were watching it together, I was like, not the both of us just like wiping tears out of our eyes at the same time. But like, so once in that scene, Bobby and Buck have like turned around to like head back to the engine, there's like a longer holding shot on or closer shot of Eddie, and it's just like you can see his eyes welling up a little bit as well. And I think he's replaying like all of those, you know, memories and empathic feelings. But it's interesting because it is very much more Eddie where he's like more stoic, right? And he doesn't want to show it as much. But you can still see his eyes are glimmering with the ghost of his past.
No, but I also
Kind of
think
literally.
that I also think that scene was, I guess, like the kind of like the cherry on top, because like I think when you know, putting Chris to bed, he was like, okay, this is what my son wanted, and then like that, and then the scene where the daughter and the Marine are reuniting, I think that was just like that kind of cemented it too, that it needs to happen. And I think it also kind of like maybe like take himself out of the situation, you know, with his own feelings about Shannon. Like he's putting at this point, he's putting Christopher's needs and wants, as he always does, but he's putting them first.
Yeah. You know what? I didn't even bring it back around to that. Still, you make an incredible point. It's just another example of Eddie putting Christopher first and foremost on top of like everyone saying what Christopher needs most is his mom. But and he didn't want to listen to all of that stuff until Christopher said it himself.
I was gonna say, I'm glad Carla's not here.
Oh my god.
For once.
Yeah, and the biggest eye roll. Yeah, and like again,
sorry, that was for the last thing we talked about Carla and the things that I learned about the actress. Sorry.
Oh my god, right?
An exaggerated eye roll.
That big yikes.
Yeah.
But yeah, so essentially, you know, Eddie is asking Chris what Christopher wants. And when Christopher tells him, you know, how can he refute
no,
that?
yeah.
And then Eddie's like, yeah, Santa's sure gonna try. So like it was just kind of underlined with the whole Marine coming home.
This is a great example of how Eddie, like I know we say he puts Christopher first, and that's true, but there's lots of different ways to do that.
Mhm.
And I think one of the greatest things that makes him such a good parent is how he's constantly trying to give Christopher as much agency as he can for the age that he is. So, you know, I like think about like my parents, and I don't think they would have given me like that much of an input on like if someone was going to be in my life or not at that age. So I think it's really tender and just a great example of how, you know, he talked about it. It comes up a lot, but like it came up at the fountain when Buck is like, I really admire that kid because he wants to do everything by himself.
Yeah.
And I think it's not just like the CP of it all. It's like, you know, he's really little, but he wants, you know,
he's a kid exploring his world. Yeah,
he wants to explore and he wants to like feel confident in that. And Eddie supports him and makes that happen for him. And he is now doing the same thing in like an emotional capacity too. He's giving him, instead of him making an executive decision on what he thinks is best for his kid, he is getting input from his kid and giving him the agency to like have a big say in that decision without like letting him know that that's what's happening.
Right. No, it's very, very well done. So I think so that was a great point to bring up. So Christopher says he wants this. He's gonna deliver as best he can. And then it's just like even more solidified watching, the Marine return home to his own daughter.
Hey, where's the fire? So, the fire is at the firehouse.
Isn't it so awkward when your ex-wife just shows up out of nowhere at your employer and just starts reading you the riot act, kind of, sort of.
For someone who really wanted to keep all little bits of his life separate, this is what
working for him.
This is what I was talking about.
All that stuff up and compartmentalizing everything working.
Yeah,
blowing up in his face.
Shannon throws that little grenade on there, huh?
Mm-hmm. Honestly, she is valid for this because
100%. Yeah,
listen. It's implied that she has like continually tried to like start this conversation, and as we discussed, Eddie keeps waylaying her with sex. So
yeah, that really puts like the onus on him for doing this, for like distracting her.
So this is like, well, that isn't the consequences of my own actions.
Which is funny because, okay, I mean, I know we're going to get into this. Just the line, there's a line in there, in their whole argument where he was like, oh, is this a transaction? I mean, I don't know who is it a transaction for, really? Because,
okay.
It's, yeah, okay.
Yeah. Shannon just like comes in and inserts herself at his place of work, which like is very fair because she's like, I need to have this conversation with you and you keep not having this conversation with me. And like she says like he has been icing out her like and not return. He's been icing her out. He's not been returning her texts or calls. And like, first of all, she just like goes up and confronts him, which was a perfect way to do that with the toy drive because there's so many people there and it's kind of like a little more like under the radar. However, Buck and Chimney are right there and they hear all that happening and they just kind of like look and was like, what? Their faces.
They're the eyes, the two eye emojis.
Oh my God. They really are. They're like, what? And then
that's brothers.
That's so brother of them.
Yeah.
And then Eddie, of course, is like first of all, on the defensive, and he ushers her into the locker room, which
everyone can still see them.
The worst place to have an important conversation, and it's just like something about glass houses or glass closets. It's so stupid because there's no privacy.
No, I keep adding stuff.
It's bad.
What's that phrase about like don't throw stones in glass houses, blah blah blah. But it's also like glass closet. Anyways, but it's interesting though because that's also where Hen and Bobby have their heart to heart about like not having a place to go or not knowing what to do. So it kind of like links it to that.
You see two very different methods of dealing with panic and indecision and fear.
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
You see someone who is seeking advice to try and work through it so that they can ultimately, like he was always wanted to be with her. So he was just trying to like figure out how to like get over this fear. So he's working towards building, trying to figure out how to get over the fear and so he can get back to building
a future.
And then you have two people who got together when they were teenagers, never learned how to fucking communicate, and then spent like 4 years
apart.
Like they got married, they spent 4 years apart, and then she left for 3.
That's it.
Right?
So they were barely ever together.
Right. And they were kids like when they were together. So like you don't know how to fucking communicate about this complicated shit, especially Mr.
I know you were going to say like Homatron 3000 there.
No, I wasn't. I was trying to think of like a good like repression thing. But like conceal, don't feel, I think is like a good way to put it, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, he doesn't want to talk about his feelings. He doesn't want to have a discussion. He didn't even want to do it when he like came back from he needed a minute. And like that was fair because like he was traumatized. He just got shot.
Right. He just needed a minute.
Yeah, Santa.
But it's the fact. But it's the fact. Goddamn, Santa. Why'd you do Eddie like that?
I gotta bring you home for Christopher.
Santa and God.
We could do this. We could do this the easy way. We could do this the easy way, or we could do this the hard way.
He was like, "You're not gonna run away from this one."
Oh my God. You cannot run your gay thoughts, but you can't unrun Santa's gun.
Oh God.
These two people never learned how to communicate. I don't think either of them knows what they want.
No,
and there's
they don't.
so much. And there's so much like, I think they're both very lonely. I think they're both very confused. I think they both have, I know they both have a lot of resentment towards each other for leaving and are trying to work through that. Do we see them talking through literally any of this? Like after the first time that they're like in the parking lot where they like barely.
No, that's the last time we see Shannon.
But yeah, that's barely them like grazing the surface of it, and then they kiss.
But it's the same. We see the start of what Eddie has like continued to do, where he like didn't verbalize, didn't communicate with her, and he just they became intimate, like physically intimate, to like not have to deal with like the emotional talky stuff,
and also being lonely, right? And also like that they're remembering that this was their best friend from like their formative years, and like, you know, it's just a lot. It's very fucking messy. And it's also on her where she's like, up until the minute you hid me from her son, I thought it was a reconciliation. I'm like, bitch, did you say that? Did you ever talk about it? You could have.
It was her assuming, again, because of the lack of communication. So they were both very much looking for like different things from their interactions like that, which I can see how it could go either way. Right. But also like,
it's so messy.
It's so messy. Like Eddie does this thing where like when he's trying to make a decision or he's trying to do something for himself, it is not a good decision.
No.
And he just like ends up making his life really complicated and messy. Like it's very much he was initiating this physical
he chose
intimacy.
To sleep with her. Yes.
He's making bad choices.
Like he is laying and he has to lay in the bed that he is unmaking, I guess.
I mean, he's literally leading her on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's very much
because he doesn't know the fuck to do with all of his feelings. Yes.
And this is where we see a lot of this paralleling between Bobby and Eddie that is so prevalent in this episode, because he's just like
leading her on.
Yes. Thank you. Because it was the whole Hen told Bobby, you know, if you don't see a future, don't pretend to. And Eddie, I don't know that he sees a future there either, because he's just so like, I don't know. He's seeing a lot of the past.
But he still hasn't learned this lesson.
No. He has not. And it's just like, so he's kind of like similar to Bobby, but like in a very different way. He is frozen in amber, frozen in place. He's stuck in this like immovable. I am going to bring up every single theme, I'm telling you. I can relate it back to everything.
Frozen in amber, you idiot.
So dumb. Yeah, so it very much is that for Eddie, because he doesn't know what he wants. And it's that indecision that is causing all of this turmoil that he's also then putting on Shannon. You know?
I feel like all of this, the whole like grenade, the whole everything could have been avoided if he didn't sleep with her.
Duh.
If he didn't just use that to like,
duh,
to not talk about his feelings.
Yeah, but I mean, neither of them are equipped.
Are very
with
healthy
how-
in that
No, they
way.
don't know.
Yeah.
They don't have healthy coping mechanisms.
No, neither of them.
But I think that, they did eventually get to the crux of the problem, which is actually never resolved, by the way.
No.
Which she's like, whatever I need to do. She's like, I know that like you're in charge. You hold all the cards because I'm the one who left. Like she knows that. Good. She's finally taking accountability because she was not in the last episode. But she's like, just name it. Just name what I need to do, which I feel like, okay, one hand valid. But like on the other hand, I feel like to expect him to just
Hand it over.
be like, well, here's exactly what you need to do. And then everything will be good again. Is just so
He doesn't know.
he doesn't know. And also like, I don't know. They're just so emotionally immature. You know what I mean?
I mean, that's kind of it.
They've never been, well, as far as we know, I don't know about her other relationships, but like Eddie, this is his only relationship. And it wasn't much of a relationship. Right? So anyway, the crux of the problem is she's like, name what I need to do and, to be forgiven, basically. And he's like, I can forgive you. I just don't know if I can trust you.
Yeah.
And that's huge. We talked about this earlier. We talked about trust. Right? And I used Eddie as a comparison, who is literally like, I said he's in trust no bitch with strangers, right? But I think it's even worse once you do earn that trust and you break it.
There's almost no coming back from that.
Nope.
Almost. Very hard. Very hard. Well, and I think in this situation, it's very hard for him to like try and imagine how he can't trust her again, because she literally just was like no contact 3 years.
Yeah.
Showed back up, wanted to pick right back up. Like, I don't know that I'd ever be able to trust that person again. Like, I would need to be in a lot of couples counseling with them, probably, if I really did want to build a future with them. But I don't know.
That's the thing as well. It's that I think one of the reasons that he has such difficulty with this is I'm not sure he can compartmentalize the idea of Shannon having a relationship with Chris if that doesn't mean Shannon having a relationship with Eddie, because I think in his head it is all or nothing. So like I'm
going to talk about that in slow burn.
Oh okay. But yeah, I think that's how it makes sense in his head, because it's like
that's CompHet Central. That's
anyway. Okay, so we'll talk about that in a little bit, but like, going back to talk about like Eddie asking Shannon if this is like a transaction. What did you want to say about that?
I don't know, because I feel like that could go both ways. That could have been said either. It could be applied to the both of them.
Either way.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's like him saying,
it's like you're one
to
talk.
Right? It's very projecting.
It's not like transactional, but it is literally, it's a tactic. Like he's using it as a weapon.
He is weaponizing it, and it's making him very hypocritical, because and he's basically calling himself out because he's not ready to have some uncomfortable conversations. And it's like he's the one that made the proposition. Like, bro, just and Shannon is so like emphatic about she wants to fix things, like you said. Like, what can she do? She's like, I'm here. But to Eddie, it's like, you're here for now. Right? But it's that wanting, and it's that desire from Shannon of like wanting to be in it, just like we're seeing with so many other things, like wanting to be in it with someone. And the whole everything that Eddie's doing to her is making like keeping her from Chris is like making things feel more broken. And we see that time and time again, that idea of like feeling broken, that brokenness with Eddie. And it's just like, no wonder he feels all this stuff. Like everything's broken. And just one quick thing about, Shannon ponying up basically and saying that she knows that she doesn't have a say in this situation and that she doesn't have the power, which is a complete 180 from the last time that we see them in Haunted, which we talked about. And still, I think it was your point, how in that situation, Shannon was holding all of the cards because Eddie needed something from her.
Mhm.
So like the status quo has shifted, and Shannon is very aware of it, right? And that's why she is like practically begging for this. But and she says like she's following Eddie's lead, but again, he says he doesn't have the answers. He doesn't have the answers, but he doesn't have the power, and he doesn't know what he wants. So like Shannon's following his lead, but where are they going? And that, my friends, is a dead end.
Rachel. I think you have to go to jail for that one.
Rachel, it's bedtime. I think we have to go. That was.
You need to go night night.
That's that was
yeah, no, 100%
evil.
Evil, but so smart.
Evil Rachel.
That entire diatribe was for that pun.
Literally for that pun.
Evil Rachel.
Oh my God,
out.
ridiculous. So I did want to compare how Eddie talks about this situation to Shannon versus how he talks about it to Buck.
Yeah. Interesting to see.
Without getting too deep into it, because like some of this is all very muddled here. Just like Eddie's life right now. We're just trying to pick through it. But anyway, yeah. So we see him talking. He's like, "You're not going to say anything about it?" Which is like so out of character for Buck, right? Because like he sees something, he says something.
He's like, figured it was none of my business, so I won't say anything.
But Eddie like starts that conversation because he wants to hear what Buck has to say about it.
He starts the conversation.
And Eddie is like way more vulnerable with Buck than he is with Shannon. And we hear a lot of things that like maybe he should have talked about with her. Like how he knows that he also left, like, because he hasn't really taken the accountability for that with her. It's different. We talked about that. It's different.
Yeah.
Right? He was still in contact with her and with Christopher, most importantly. But, you know, he brings up a good point, which is like, you know, I got called a hero and she got called evil. But we both left. And like, again, we already talked about it. I'm not going to rehash it. But like, he could have had this conversation with her. He could have said this to her.
Yeah. Wouldn't it be such like a point of like like leveling the playing field a little bit for them? Like they keep talking, like one of them has the majority of the power at any which time. And again, that goes to like the not on the same page sort of thing, like the equal partners sort of thing. But like that would have leveled things out or done like so much to like help with that.
And it's just really interesting the way that Eddie talks about it, where he's like, you know, and he is perceptive of his son being perceptive, or he's like, Chris doesn't know. I'm hiding my wife from my kid, but like he's perceptive. So like, I don't know. Basically, he knows he has to make a decision because he can't do this forever, not just to Shannon, but because, you know, eventually he'll fuck up and something will happen and he'll be perceptive and see something he shouldn't, maybe. Oh
no. Oh no.
But he
oh my God.
Where's I going? Sorry.
The amount of
my
stuff
brain went there.
The amount of stuff that he continues to try to hide from Christopher, and you know he's just Eddie, honey, you smart, but sometimes you real dumb. You dumb
Basically,
in the emotions.
What I want to, I think the point that I'm trying to get at that isn't slow burn is that he says like he doesn't know like if he lets her back in to their lives, is he doing it for Christopher or is he doing it for him? He doesn't know what he wants, and the fact that he doesn't know if he wants her is a pretty clear answer.
Yeah, he
doesn't
obvious.
seem like he sees a future with her, like as a partner. I think it's way less about Christopher. Like, I think that was just like a foregone conclusion. It was just that like he wanted to vet her basically and see how serious she was about sticking around before he let it happen.
Yeah.
But it's just very clear in the way that he avoids having any sort of significant conversation with her or having any sort of showing us any sort of like
vulnerability
connection with them outside of sex, which like inherently isn't intimate, like emotionally. Just because you're sleeping together doesn't mean you're like being emotionally vulnerable or intimate.
It's that conflation between conflating emotional versus physical intimacy and using one to replace another.
Mm-hmm. So I think we see a very clear like comparison, like parallel between Bobby and Eddie. We are shown the differences between these two vastly different relationships.
Yeah.
And it's like crystal fucking clear when you can compare them that like Eddie is veering the other direction.
Mm-hmm.
Because his fear isn't losing her. It's the opposite.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. and that kind of makes sense because he's already lost her.
Mm-hmm.
So like, as far as he's concerned, like there is literally nothing left to lose because he's lost it already.
And the rest that's is going to be in slow burn because I have things to say about that.
Yeah. I mean, I think in just to close out the scene dissection with, after this confrontation, this argument that Eddie and Shannon have, plus everything that we talked about in Eddie's character arc section. So he does end up making the decision to bring Shannon back into at least Christopher's life.
Mm-hmm.
And like providing for Christopher like the one thing that he wanted, and because he kind of knew that he could make it happen.
And I think he knew that he was gonna do it.
He knew that he was gonna do it. And I do really like that it mirrors what Shannon was telling Eddie about that one time that she caved and got like a 16-foot Christmas tree and put it outside. Because it just like it brings that like magic back a little bit for Christopher and that like childlike wonder, and his faith in the universe is unshakable at this point. I'm not sure that it will be for much longer, so let's enjoy it while it lasts. So I guess to like transition a little bit into slow burn at the very end there, Eddie, watches on as Shannon and Christopher are reunited, and then he goes to them and he embraces them both like as a group hug, like as a family unit. So Anne, would you like to start us off with with
so this? I'd like to name this sub-segment of slow burn Eddie versus the CompHet agenda.
Fitting.
I feel like this is going to be a regular thing we are talking about with him. I don't even know where to start, man. It's just, it's what we talked about in the last section, which is how like he never even considered letting her back into Chris's life without being with her. He only saw it because it's the whole traditional family rules, how his parents were like, you're going to get married. All of that's still in his head.
Yeah.
And that was, I think, one of the big reasons why he was trying to distract her. Because
for him, it was all or nothing.
All or nothing. And I don't think he wants to be with her. Like everything that the narrative is showing us, it is not. It's a big no from him, dog. He loves her. He loves her. He cares about her. But I don't think that he wants to be with her. I don't think he sees.
No.
I don't think he sees a future with her other than the like, picture perfect 2.5 kids.
He sees the past. That is the thing that he's holding on to.
That, but there isn't even really a past that they were both present for very long. But also it's just that like image of like that's been, pounded into his head, his childhood of like what a family is, right?
Yeah.
And that's how it works. Mom, a dad, a kid, and like you need to be together. That's why they made them get married. Like once they got pregnant. So it's just if you look at I sent screenshots to Phil and Rachel earlier. I love looking at facial expressions and especially comparing facial expressions sometimes. So like there is a marked difference between how Eddie is like tearing up at the reunion of the soldier and his daughter, and I'm assuming wife. He is like, he's still reserved because he's Eddie, but he very clearly tears in his eyes and he has a little smile, right? Like a soft, sweet. When he's looking at Shannon and Christopher, my dude looks high-key miserable. Like he is tearing up. He's tearing up because he is emotional for his kid. And I think he's emotional for her reuniting with him too. But he like low-key looks...
He looks like he's grimacing.
Kind of petrified. Yeah. Like he does do like a blink, 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 like blinking back tears because it is like an emotional thing. But what are all of those emotions?
Because it's like, I'm happy my kid has his mother back.
Yeah.
And
I'm happy I can make
happy
my
for
kid
her.
happy.
I'm happy that she wants to be,
have a relationship with him.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think he's happy to have her back in his life because he really cares about her. Again, the best friend thing. But, my dude. Do yourselves a favor and rewatch this episode and pause and look at the difference in his face. Like, it is crazy. So I don't know if it was like crazy acting choice or crazy direction or just a coincidence or a mix of both. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it gives like a foreboding. Like, this could go in so many directions, and it's not just that
None
happy.
of them good.
And it can't be
all
happy.
of them.
Yeah,
all of them bad. Did anyone let Eddie know that divorce is a thing?
Shannon did.
Like it's so interesting though, because he's just like, if he's thinking the best thing, he's putting Christopher first and whatever, you would think an idea would come into his brain that, hey, maybe the best thing for my kid is for his parents to not be together, but that doesn't even to be civil, but like divorce, but not like together
be friends. But no, he can't.
Also, I think traditionally with Catholicism,
with Catholicism,
is that like Shannon and the Catholicism?
Traditionally with the Catholicism, I think I think there's something about like not. I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe it's
like
just
you can't
something.
Get divorced?
Yeah, like you shouldn't get divorced. Like, or you're not supposed to get divorced.
Well, yeah, that's why King Henry VIII broke from the church and created the Church of England, because they wouldn't give him an annulment. So
I don't think it's as frowned upon. I think it might also be like a cultural thing.
That too.
Like, it just seems like it was really instilled in him by his parents.
Oh, well, with Eddie, yeah. It could be that.
I think on another level, it would just be another thing that he has failed at, right? And then that becomes ammunition for his parents to use against him,
as if they are not doing that already.
This man from his parents. Oh my God!
Hold on,
free this man and his son.
Hold on there, okay? So if we want to talk about him holding on to this relationship in basically paper marriage only to prove to himself, to prove to his parents that he can do it, who is that sounding like? That sounds like Buck and Abby.
They're so fucking stupid.
That very ooh, that just
yeah, no.
The spirit of like of narrative parallels took over me.
It's so funny because it's like they are both kind of, I don't want to say clingers. They're both like hold on past its expiration date.
Yeah.
But also they run away. Like,
yeah, it's
they do both.
It's this constant
get you a man
tension.
Who can do both.
It's this constant tension. It's this constant pressure, this push and pull of staying, running away, and they always choose like the wrong one. And it's like, no, Anyway, so sorry, that
Hamster
just
wheel.
occurred to me. So I needed to say that immediately, but continue. What were we
So
talking about? Oh
valid.
yeah,
Divorce.
divorce.
Too soon.
Probably ammunition for
So
his parents to use against him. Yeah, great. That's a fun thought.
well, speaking of Buck, we're gonna go back to what Buck has to say about this.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, because Buck has opinions, even though he didn't think it was.
Do
his
you
place to say anything.
remember a few episodes ago when Buck was like pretty much like he knew he needed to leave Abby or like, walk away from that, but he needed some validation.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Do you think it's weird that I still in Abby's apartment?"
Yes, I do.
Abby was like,
Me
"Yes,"
too.
and he's like, "Me too. Don't tell anyone." So I immediately thought of that
One of
when
her
he's
favorite
talking.
lines.
He's talking to Chim, and it just the way that what he's saying starts, you can tell that like Chim has had to put up with at least however long it took them to get there of just him talking
about the Eddie situation.
Yes. And I think that like Chimney was like, "Ooh, let's gossip" to a certain point. And then he was like, "Okay, like you really need to,"
because again, Chimney
chill.
is a gossip girl. And
Yes.
hang on, do we see them tree shopping before Shannon comes to the station or after? I forget.
After.
Okay.
Because I don't think Buck knew.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't think any of them knew.
No. Because
that's why he looks
Eddie keeps things
scandalized.
Okay, right. Now I remember. Thank you.
And then obviously they like went into the glass closet to talk where everyone could see them and probably hear them because it's only glass anyway.
And Eddie like checks the doors too, like closes all. It's like,
yeah, no one can see us.
Well, they can't hear them probably, but they can definitely
it's just
see
as
it.
effective as putting all the gay thoughts behind the glass closet. But
He
anyway,
was literally putting himself in the glass closet.
He literally was. Oh my God.
I love that glass locker room, narratively, metaphorically.
Anyway, so Buck's talking to Chimney and he's like, he's sleeping with her, but he's lying about it, right? Not just like, he didn't mean just like lying to Christopher, like not telling Christopher. He meant like
He's
not
telling
talking
anybody.
to me about it.
Mm-hmm.
And he took that personally. And then, and then he's like he's having an affair with his own wife. Isn't that weird? So I just thought that was like an interesting kind of little parallel where he's kind of, to me, he's equating
connecting the dots. That
weird situation with where he was at with Abby, where it was like he was staying in a place that he really needed to leave because he was already left, right? He was haunting the space. And I think he is looking at Eddie with not a lot of information.
Yeah.
But still going,
very limited information.
This is weird.
Just what Eddie tells him, which is
but he's picking up on the vibes, like we talked about earlier. He's picking up on the vibes. And just the fact that like Eddie and Buck have gotten close pretty fast. Mm-hmm. And like, how much has he heard about Shannon at this point? That she's not in the picture?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what else has he said about her?
Well, we see that he knows more than we think he does when they're talking about it at the fountain while Chris is going to see Santa.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a very one-sided account of it, which is what, Eddie has been feeding him, of course. So like you said, Eddie instigates this conversation because he's looking to Buck for, as a confidant, right? And Buck, very unbuck-like, is like, I figured it was none of my business. Chimney told him it was none of their business. Buck has never been quiet about anything in his entire life, except kind of now, where I think similar.
Oh my God, it's so weird.
It's very funny because I think, how like in 201 when we were talking about, like Eddie has kind of like gotten Buck's number a little bit and kind of like understands how to like, get around like some of those defenses sort of thing. I think Buck this is Buck's turn to learn a little bit. So he knows that if he is quiet, which rarely happens, but again, to bring it back to like 202 and 203, they are able to, like, Eddie allows Buck the space to kind of like embrace those quiet moments of his. And I think this is kind of Buck's turn to, you know, see Eddie a little bit, right? To see him. And knows that if he is kind of quiet, Eddie will end up filling that space, right? So so it's this really funny like back and forth of like, I'm not gonna say anything. You're right. None of my business. And then Eddie just like goes and just like spills his guts, right? because Buck also gives him the space to do that.
It's
for Eddie to yap. The rare Eddie yap.
It's like Buck, all Buck has to do is stay silent, give him a look, and he'll just like spill the beans.
That's it, right?
I wanted to draw a direct comparison to that exact tactic that we see in season 7.
Yeah.
With the Kim brownies.
Which is
okay, but like contrast how Buck acts, like the silent thing until he talks, similar, but everything else about how he navigates that situation is so different. And I don't think it's like, oh, we know each other so much better now, like maybe a little bit, but I think it was just like super out of character because Buck is kind of, when he gives advice, he's kind of like does what therapists do, where he like asks you leading questions instead of doing the Bobby thing, where he's like, this is exactly what you should do, unless it's a very clear cut, like that's a wrong thing you're doing. Like when it was leading people on, right? He's like, you can't do that. That's not right. So in that situation, he flat out is like, what do you want? Right? Which would have been
in
a
7.
thing that which would have been a thing that would have made sense for him to do here. It would have made sense for him to ask a question about like, why were you hiding it? Why don't you feel like you can, like, you know what I mean? Like it just the conversation felt so fucking weird. And I know that like they're still getting to know each other and like that established dynamic isn't,
as established
100%. But it's still so fucking weird for Buck. Like the way he's talking in that scene is just so, they're both being so weird.
I mean, that makes me wonder then if like, because they are very similar situations, if like he in season 7 when he's talking to Eddie about Kim and everything, like if he is thinking back to this conversation and being like, well, that obviously didn't work out so good. And kind of like using that prior experience to help him navigate this one in a way that's more productive as well. And like I do want to point out, like in this episode, Buck is like he's trying to continually validate Eddie, his little like quips, like totally understandable, like never said you did, that kind of stuff. So like he is validating Eddie. He's having his back. Like he said he would, but he is doing that on a very limited amount of information, which is totally shaken by what Eddie tells Buck next, right? And I think this might be like a turning point in their relationship as well that will help in the future, like in season 7 with Eddie like really confiding and really taking in, like this is Eddie choosing again to be vulnerable in front of Buck. And I think this is where that like, okay. So Buck has proven to have Eddie's back on the job. He's proven to have Eddie's back in regards to Christopher. This is Buck proving that he has Eddie's back for himself and his vulnerability, because I don't think he still has not shared so much about himself without necessarily like centering Chris. In until now.
I think this is such a huge thing that he trusts Buck with this insecurity not insecurity, this guilt that he has
Yeah.
over, re-enlisting,
Mhm.
right? Because he was scared.
Afraid of commitment.
That he shared that with Buck. Yes, that he shared that with Buck is like crazy because they've known each other for what, probably a couple months. Known each other for a
Mhm.
couple months, and he feels that safe with him, like trusts him that much. And I think for Eddie to like reveal something like that, where like he does feel like a failure and he has so much guilt, and it's something that like he's been given shit for from all fronts, right?
Yeah.
So to open up and be like, here's a fucked up part of me that I am ashamed of, but I am trusting you to still care about me the same way and still have my back the same way.
Mhm. It's something that can for a lesser, shall we say, profound bond, would it's something that could
Still's good leave.
I love you guys so much. It's
Only one
kind of
supernatural reference per episode, not two.
I think we surpassed that.
There's like 5 blurry wife references. We did a 10-minute Misha Collins endorsement. Not anything like about Misha Collins, just endorsing him as a
Yes,
person that
as a
people should
person.
follow.
Good person, buddy system approved.
Anyway.
Anyways, so it's this it's this
The profound bond.
Yeah, this like bomb of information that
No.
that for any less of a profound bond could so easily break it, because this is like completely shattering Buck's
the pedestal that he had Eddie on.
Exactly, which goes back to Tim Minear's quote about how, they wanted to show that Eddie isn't perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And Buck very much had this preconceived notion of Eddie as like
that Eddie was trying to project. So
exactly.
He was conceiving exactly what
what
Eddie wanted him to.
Yeah, but I think we mentioned this in another episode or something. But like, because Buck is very intuitive, and even though Eddie like does pass the vibe check, I think Buck can also like see past that a little bit in maybe like a more subconscious way, and know that like Eddie is just wholly good. And that's why.
Oh, he sees that in the way that Eddie is with Christopher.
Yeah.
Like, I think he already saw it a little bit, but then seeing what kind of father he is, like clinched
solidified it. And I think that is the reason why he has put Eddie up on that pedestal.
That and the like, you're a war hero. Like,
yeah. So and it was a lot of this this reputation preceding Eddie. And like, also, if you go back and watch this episode, look at Buck's expression when Eddie, says that he ran out first. And Buck has a very interesting facial journey, like face journey that is. And again, I think I said this in one of the more recent episodes.
Oh, the Jensen Ackles.
Oliver Stark went to the Jensen Ackles School of Acting because he is not in focus, right? And yet you can still very clearly see how this information is like washing over him. And like, this is Eddie's surprise to Buck. So we're talking, so like the whole episode, we're talking about like people surprising people with things that they didn't know or things that they hadn't thought about. This is what Buck is surprised with from Eddie. And you're kind of seeing in real time him like starting to reframe everything that he knows about Eddie, but also like still honoring the fact that Eddie is being very vulnerable with him. But now Buck's like, wait, I didn't actually have all of that information. And it still doesn't necessarily change what kind of good person that Buck thinks he is. He's just like, this is a lot deeper than I thought.
Would you say that like Buck's almost immediate like acceptance and just like not reacting in a way anyone else did to that information is like the first, this doesn't change a thing between us?
Oh my God.
Right? Because it does change the pedestal, but it doesn't change how he
It doesn't change anything between them.
Yes.
it changes the way he understands Eddie's
Yeah.
Eddie as a person,
But it
and
doesn't
Eddie's
change how he
history,
cares about
but it
him
doesn't
and how
change.
he thinks he's a
It
good
doesn't
person.
change their relationship.
No.
And again, like I said, like it is a profound bond because it is so strong, and it has proven they have each proven themselves to be like, again, this equal partnership, and that is why Eddie like confides in Buck in the first place. Because it's that equality there is no one person holding the power over the other.
There's definitely in every episode with Buck and Eddie, especially at the beginning. So there's these building block themes, right, where they continue to build and deepen and strengthen their relationship. But I also think this is like a relationship milestone.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like literally talking about your ex.
Yeah. It's like it's opening up and like revealing that's inherently like what a relationship, like close relationship is, whether it's platonic or romantic. It's like you're showing them, the parts of yourself that you don't like or insecure about, and they will love you anyway.
It's showing the worst parts of yourself, and the other person still showing up for you and having your back. And it's yeah.
Wow. It's what they both want in a relationship. One wants one to have their back. The other one wants for someone to love them anyway.
So speaking of trust, I know that we talked about it, but I do have to draw this direct fucking parallel because like they did it.
They did it first.
They did it first. We're shown here, like we just talked about for the last 20 minutes, how much trust Eddie is putting in Buck by opening up to him about this stuff. What the fuck did he just say to Shannon about how he doesn't know if he can trust her? What does he say to Buck next season after he's going through like the worst thing he's ever gone through in his life, and Buck just kind of drops out and he's not there for them and he's angry. What does he do? It's just don't do it again. Of course I forgive you.
Yeah.
Immediately back to how they were. Like
and it's Eddie who is so, because it's established here first. Eddie can forgive, but his trust has to be earned again and again, right? If it's broken, right? Trust was broken, has to earn that trust back again. And
Buck
he doesn't and he doesn't know that he can trust Shannon again, even though she is insisting that she is there and she's not going to go anywhere. And he's still like, I don't know. But then with Buck later on, it's just like, of course I forgive you. Of course I trust you. Like,
just don't do it again. Like, talk to me next time. Like, what?
Literally communicate.
Yeah.
What? Mr. Hypocrite, a little bit. But
because honestly, it was more like, it wasn't even like he was really mad at Buck. It was everything else that was going on.
Yeah.
It was just that like Buck was the outlet that got all that anger, and he felt abandoned, right? And he had already been left. So
yeah.
But I think he saw like in the grocery store how Buck like literally was just so spiraling so badly trying to get back there that he didn't even like realize that he had dropped off the face of the earth, and he immediately like showed remorse and like, oh my God, no, I want to be there for Christopher. Like, we can make that happen. It's just completely different. Like we always see him. The trust is just so implicit with them. Like even when they fight, even when they're on the outs, it takes nothing, literally nothing, other than one conversation for him to let Buck back in right where he was before.
And it's just so interesting too that, again, I know that particular scene that we're talking about at the moment is in season 3. But it's so interesting that we have in the 2 episodes so far that we see Shannon, we have in Haunted 207, we have the you didn't have my back parallel to the 201, you can have my back any day. And then in the second episode we see Shannon, we're talking about like forgiveness and trust and how it's not implicit with Eddie and Shannon. And then a season later, it's so freely given by Eddie for such a similar thing. I'm sorry if not deliberate parallel. Why?
Oh, that's so on purpose because they do this shit like word for
Exactly.
word.
And
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
the stuff with Buck and Shannon specifically, though, are some of the most direct parallels that we get out of all of the show. Like, there are a lot of parallels. I mean, it's a long show, so they end up paralleling a lot of things. But some of the most, like, viscerally exact dialogue for some of these parallels are between Buck and Shannon. And most of the time, it's more like a paraphrasing sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we can talk about the stuff with like Bobby and Eddie being panicking about the stuff with Instant Family. That is also like pretty word for word, which we can get into in a minute. But like, it is consistently the most precise, exact word for word parallel between Buck and Shannon. And
it's the biggest ones.
And that is
it's
so
the core of, for Eddie, what a relationship is to him that he wants.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's funny that we're talking about that because when I was watching the Shannon, you know, when Shannon and Eddie are like bantering in their after their trysts. Their trysts. I was like, I could just put Buck in here and it's the same thing.
Because he is a yapper sexual.
Because they can like, and like, I mean Shannon, because like, I feel like because Shannon was Eddie's best friend and Buck is Eddie's best friend, I'm like, oh my God, they're literally the same fucking person.
Exactly.
In a way.
Yeah. No, I know exactly what you mean.
I think when you look at a lot of the personality traits, when we learn a little bit more about Shannon, which we don't know a lot of, but like sometimes what we get in like the flashbacks, I think personality wise, Buck and Shannon are very similar. So it makes sense why Eddie just like gravitates towards each of them. So that's interesting.
Shannon's the exception.
Oh, also, spoiler, maybe preview, not spoiler. Buck is a Libra sun, and I believe Shannon is too, so
you're right.
It's on her gravestone, right?
Yeah, it's an October date. I forget.
Anyway, crazy that he has such a specific type.
Oh, that's interesting. Wait, that's very okay. We're gonna have to bring that up
in the episode.
Yeah. But it's just like, when you think about it, when you look at like Shannon, what we know of like as a character, not necessarily as like a mother, but like her personality of it all, like what we got from the deleted scene from season 7 where Eddie's talking to Chris about it. It just seems like, honestly, I really love fics where Shannon is still alive, and like, because I think Shannon and Buck would get along really well.
Yeah.
That's like a fun thought experiment that I like to live in.
So yeah, getting back to that parallel with one of the parallels between Bobby and Eddie. There's so many. But specifically the fear of an instant family, right? Athena brings that up, right? That she thinks that's like part of the problem, and it like is in a way, but not in the way that she is imagining. For Bobby, it's the fear of he wants that family, but he fears losing it.
Yes.
Right? For Eddie,
fears
when there's the implication of an instant family, he literally is so dramatic about it, he feels like he's dying.
and again, this is looking forward to like season 5. Yeah.
He's like, oh my God, they implied that a woman that I'm married to heart attack. He has panic attacks when he thinks about starting a family with the women he's dating and serious relationships with.
And they again, talking about like very direct parallels, they do use
the word instant
the
family.
Word he was panicking at the idea of an instant family. So it's like, how can we not tie this back to this episode? It's really laying the groundwork and just like another reason why Bobby and Eddie are often parallels. Sometimes they're mirrors, because again, like this is showing like two very different scenarios, like two different ways that you could, two different paths that diverge from the same one.
On the surface level, you're showing instant family fear fear of losing family. Instant family fear of being with a woman. Like, I don't know how else to swing that for you, because it isn't just Anna, it's Shannon. We're seeing it in this episode, even though they're already a family, but they haven't really been. That's what we keep saying. They're married, they're a family, but they really haven't
It's
been.
like in name only, not in the
Mhm.
way that like it feels.
Yes.
And it's like when
It's like, but he's like, well, I can't run away, and this is just going to be it, and now I'm stuck. Right?
stuck again.
And then we see it again with Marisol, just in a different way.
It's a slightly different way with Marisol, but it's just like when you compare that idea of like instant family, of, you know, having this person so significant to Eddie and so significant to Chris, and just like taking this like really pivotal role in both of their lives, it's like, well, Buck already inhabits that position, and it doesn't freak Eddie out like it does. So when you
seem to have a problem committing to some things.
so when you look at all of those examples, right? What is the common denominator, right? Because he is so like off put by the idea of instant family with Shannon, with Anna, with Marisol, not with Buck. What is the common denominator here? And it's the fact that they're women.
I'm so sorry. I just realized that Bobby was either being really shady when he said, you don't have a problem committing to some things, and he lists the things and then pauses and is like, Shannon, was that shade?
I'd have to rewatch that scene.
Was that wait, was that after what season was that? 7?
7.
Maybe it's Peyton.
Was it 7?
Was it?
Yeah, because
where's it 6?
No, it's 7 because Eddie is talking about moving
Marisol.
in with Marisol. And Bobby's like, I didn't think you guys were that far yet.
I think that whole thing is shady. I think it's payback.
That whole thing is payback.
I think he's trying to like push him. I think he's trying to push him, you know, in like the most subtle, hands-off way he can, by saying something that he very obviously did have a problem committing to.
Yeah, it's like one of these things is not like the other. But it's also just like a very Bobby thing to be kind of like slightly off the mark. So like I'd really have to.
It could go either way.
I'd really have to rewatch that and like look into it, because like I feel like in that sense, what Bobby is not saying.
That pause has always felt significant to me before he says Shannon.
Exactly, because like what Bobby is not saying is just as important as what Bobby is saying.
Well, isn't Bobby the only one who knows about her asking for a divorce too?
Yes. Yeah. As far as we know.
Yeah. That parallel is crazy. He already has an instant family with Buck. He literally is doing what you would be. They're having this conversation at a fountain, knocking knees together while their child is on Santa's lap.
It's literally the conversation that Eddie is not having with Shannon. He is then deciding to have it with Buck. And you see, and this is why this is so like crazy, is because you see how easily Eddie actually instigates that conversation, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is so easy for him to talk to him. He tries to like, I think he doesn't want to like just come out and talk. So he
leads
Buck.
it in.
Yeah, he's like, you should, I want you to make me talk. Like, it's okay. You can do it. Basically.
Exactly. He allows Buck to lead him into that conversation because it's a very like intrinsic motivation. He wants to talk about it. But that is the same conversation that Shannon has been begging for him to have. Right. Mm-hmm. And he refuses to have it. And it's like, well, he couldn't just go and like get physically intimate with Buck right then. So like what's left? You know? with taking sex out of the equation here, what's left? Eddie is able to talk about it. That is one of those things that like Eddie keeps mentioning about how sex complicates everything. Look how uncomplicated it is with Buck.
This is my second to last thing.
Yeah.
Performing. Sorry, I'm bringing us back to the Eddie versus the CompHet agenda.
It's always we'll always end up there.
My brother and Babadook. That's gay God, right? It's like gay Christ. We have that whole scene with that confrontation, right? Is it what? Hold on. The scene with Maddie and Chimney where she says blah 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 was a performance.
Yeah.
Is that right after his confrontation with Shannon or the reunion? The reunion. It's after the reunion. It cuts right from the reunion to that.
Because we end the episode with Maddie and the flashback.
Okay, so they're showing all of the I'll be home for Christmas, right? Showing all of the like the family building blocks and the new milestones and
oh man.
And then it's actually not even brought up like that Eddie isn't there. He isn't mentioned like at the Bathena house. I think it's only Maddie and Chimney. It cuts directly from that reunion where I talked about how fucking weird Eddie's facial expressions are. He is not jazzed. You could say he is not jazzed.
He's not jazzed.
He's not jazzed about having to perform. And then we cut to the Chimney and Madney scene, and she's talking about how she loves Christmas, but she started hating it because it was just she had to perform. It was literally just a performance of like what a happy it wasn't real. Basically, is what she was saying. We had to pretend I had to pretend that everything was great and we had this great relationship. Basically, I had to perform, and they'd do it right after Eddie is standing watching this reunion, like with all these mixed emotions, where you can clearly see all these other things that we've talked about.
And then seemingly makes a decision and goes and hugs both of them.
Because he doesn't think he has another choice, as we have said. So he's mask back on. He has to perform.
Well,
transition into the scene where they talk about performance, and there are Maddie Eddie parallels.
There are a lot of Maddie Eddie
we'll get
parallels.
Into over time, but this is one. This is the first one, I think.
Oh, that's
for different reasons, obviously, but
I didn't catch that. Ooh.
Performing.
Oof.
And he hates it, as we find out later. He hates dating. It feels like a performance, but he doesn't really date. Is the thing.
Yeah,
he's a serial monogamous until he
because he doesn't understand that it doesn't have to be that. Like, I mean,
right?
He and Buck have this very much in common that they go like, and Bobby, like 1 to 100 very quickly. Like when they decide they're in, they're all in. When Eddie thinks that he's decided that he's all in.
100%. But I think what I was trying to get at is that because he doesn't really date, he's hopping into these relationships, and he's saying dating feels like a performance. So being in those relationships feels like a performance. Feels like he has to perform.
And then you also just also having performing
issues.
Oh my God.
So, something intimate scenes, something
I wish I could help.
Buck wishes he could help.
Yeah. Yeah, so I feel like the Eddie versus the CompHet agenda, the performing, the parallels between his relationships with women and his relationship with Buck, and like the stark contrasts and direct parallels that we see between Buck and specifically Shannon, because that's the only relationship he puts any merit in, any value in, right?
Yeah.
It's the mother of his child. It was his best friend, his childhood best friend. It was his first relationship.
It's the only relationship that he puts like real effort into, even if he doesn't really want to.
Yeah. Just crazy work.
Yeah, that's wild. I do want to mention, since we're before we get to our friend the elf, because I think that'll be a good place to end.
Yeah.
When they're having this conversation, when Buck and Eddie are having this very vulnerable conversation over at the fountain, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we could say, like, hope springs eternal and all of that. There was a TV Line article, and I know usually I bring up press stuff in the Jaws of Life in our deep dive, but
this was gay.
This fits here. This is a little gay, or it can be gay. So there was a TV Line article. It's about Tim Minear talking about revealing the hidden secrets for fans shipping Buck and Eddie. And this is
wild article title, but okay.
When is this from?
This is from January 2019. So this is before it comes back from...
But after this episode.
After this episode. It's in the hiatus after this episode.
Interesting.
Right? So the journalist is talking to Tim Minear, and they're basically talking about how, you know, fans have picked up on like this vibe between Buck and Eddie, right? And so
Still's killing me.
the article says, like, Buck spent the earlier part of the season pining over Abby, and Eddie's been trying to make things work with his wife, but that hasn't stopped fans from shipping. And then it links to this like Buddie edit on YouTube or something in the article. And then it continues to say, so it didn't feel totally out of the blue when one of Santa's elves mistook Buck and Eddie for a couple. And there's a quote from Tim, which was, I know a lot of people are getting that vibe from Buck and Eddie, or between Buck and Eddie, which is why I put that little joke at the end. And then Tim goes on to say, basically, the winsome elf was speaking for the audience. And I'm not saying that the fountain shooting up behind Buck and Eddie meant anything metaphorically. You decide. And
I feel like I read that before, and I think I had a mental breakdown.
I think I blocked it out.
It recircled its way around Twitter not that long ago. So he talks about the elf a little bit, but and we'll get back to that. But I just wanted to say the thing with the fountain that people have also like kind of caught on with the fountain like exploding behind them, and also like very weird to have in an episode that's talking about like performance and sexual performance, maybe in relation to Eddie. Very interesting. And for him to specifically say, I'm not saying that the fountain behind them meant anything metaphorically. You decide. I mean, that is a very like PR answer.
He literally went, which could mean nothing.
He literally said, which could mean nothing 5 years before, which could mean nothing was a thing. It's a very, okay, so like it's a very PR answer to be like, you decide, it's up to your interpretation. It seemed to me like the journalist was asking about the elf. And then Tim, in classic Tim fashion, just like shoehorns a little bit more Buddie stuff in there somewhere and is just randomly talking about the fountain. Because he probably saw people talking about, you know, oh, it's a metaphor for about it when it aired, and then decided to comment on it. That seems very Oliver Stark coded to me.
Like I said,
apropos
spiritual father-son there with how they talk to the media.
Apropos of nothing. It's just visual storytelling. Interesting.
I think that's a very interesting quote when you think about the quote from last year where he talks about how he was intentionally writing queer coding Buck as early as season 1. Listen, I'm paraphrasing because he says 2 and then implies that like,
oh yeah, well,
could have been earlier. He was intentionally doing it starting season 2, but like he was like maybe subconsciously before then. So I just choose to put 1.
That's wild to come from the showrunner, and to even like honestly, what other showrunner is really talking so candidly about the non-canon ship of their TV show? Not many. Especially when it is a homosexual ship. As opposed to, you know, like the will they, won't they straight ships.
The heteros.
So many. Just wanted to point that out. Now, the other part of that, we can talk about our favorite little Christmas elf before we end. So Tim was basically saying he put her there as a mouthpiece of the audience.
Right.
Love
so
that.
The mouthpiece of the audience is looking with her eyes and then saying what she sees with her eyes. So she sees an adorable kid with Santa. She looks over. She sees 2 men with no personal space. Their knees knocking together. Smiling.
Having a deep conversation.
Looking over very fondly at their son. And
Unreal.
so she sees gay and she says gay, which is so valid of her and the audience, because if we sees gay, we're gonna say gay, because I'm sorry.
We're just observers.
I am just looking at the things that you put on the screen and drawing logical conclusions, because that's how storytelling comprehension works.
Can we be blamed?
No.
The narrative leads us there. We're just following
right there.
We're just following the witch's road.
It's just such a different approach of like how they treated the audience insert for fan fiction. If you want to compare, contrast something treated as a joke, because he says, "Oh, it's a joke," but like,
is it?
It's not. It's not
Tim
a joke
doesn't
because he's
say-
not making. He says, "I threw that joke in."
Yeah, but he's not saying.
No, the vibes aren't a joke. That's not what he's saying.
Yeah.
The fan fiction,
It's
played
like a little
off
wink.
the Destiel thing, like a joke. Like Jensen Dean fourth wall breaks like directly into the camera, like eye roll, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you have Timberly Minear over here.
Bestie Tim.
I watch the same show. I see what the buddy see. I don't think the buddies are wrong.
For those of you who can't see, Han is literally like crying into her hands with that.
I'm having a nervous breakdown.
It's wild how like he says he put that little joke in as in like more of a wink, like a nod to the audience, but he doesn't treat it like a joke.
Yeah, like I see you. You're not crazy.
Exactly. He treats it with respect.
Yeah.
Cuz like Buck just says like stands there, is kind of, I guess you could say, surprised. Thinks about it for a second. It's just like, thanks. And twirls away.
It was literally like the reaction that he had to realizing that he was bisexual. He was just like,
oh, yeah,
makes sense. Goes about his day.
Radical acceptance.
No denying anything.
He literally for 1 second went, I was like, thanks. Like,
it's like in those 0.5 seconds, were you just like daydreaming about it? What was happening inside that mind of yours?
What were you doing?
It's just like, yeah, it's understandable. I get it. Truly.
I get it.
I wish. Walks away. But I guess it's like, I mean, to kind of go a little deeper, I guess maybe he was just, I mean, he literally in that conversation with Nettie, he was just like, I just really admire that kid. Like, I mean, it's like, oh, he's, you know, like you're saying that this kid, you're complimenting this kid that I really admire and like equating him to my, like, as my son. Like, yeah.
Oh my God.
He's like, I would be so lucky.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
I have one more comment that I forgot to say earlier about Eddie and Buck talking at the fountain, which is that I don't think Buck realizes that he has feelings at all yet.
No.
But I think that he felt, not just looking at the situation with him and with Eddie and Shannon and being like, that's weird. I think he felt weird about it for some reason. And I feel like that played into how he gave that advice, which was like, well, it sounds like she's already back in both of your lives. It just seems like you should get back together. Oh, it's none of my business. Like he's just giving advice that seems like the advice that he should be giving. Like he's giving advice like how he thinks Bobby would give advice or how he thinks Eddie wants him to be giving advice. Like he's not. This isn't me reaching. This is me like trying to like analyze it because it is so just like unlike Buck to give advice like that. So I feel like he felt some kind of weird way and felt like he couldn't really speak his mind because he felt weird about it and didn't know why and couldn't identify it. And so he didn't feel like he could give impartial advice to some extent. Something like that.
It's also kind of like that trope where person A assumes that person B is already with the other person that, you know, they want to, that supposedly they want to be with, but they don't. And like person A just not realizing or not knowing that information that person B doesn't actually want to be in that relationship. So they're just like, but they just assume.
Well, that also goes for like that kind of miscommunication trope that we've been seeing a lot of in this episode. But also, I kind of wonder if like Buck felt on the outs a little bit because it's not showing itself in the same kind of like jealousy that we saw in episode 1. But I wonder if he kind of was feeling a little weird because he's like, well, Eddie's person is back in his life.
Mm-hmm.
Where does that leave me?
So where does that kind of leave me, who's like, this person has become such a big factor in my life, and I feel like I've become like a big person in his life. So like it's
we know
that
he's famously insecure.
It's that insecurity about people leaving him again, just like or not feeling wanted because someone else is coming in and like superseding his position, which we see in 201, where it's like at Eddie about that. But we also see it again in season 7 with Tommy, and it's not the same kind of jealousy sort of thing, because I think,
well, it's different. It's the beginning of their relationship, right?
Yeah, as opposed to something that's already established. Yeah. So he's like, I don't stand a chance.
Also, it could also be tied to Maddie and Doug, kind of, in a way.
The ex is coming back.
The ex is coming back. Maddie, Eddie being taken away because, you know, as they're a very significant person, like they're significant people in the book. So it's kind of, it could be like that.
That's a good tie too. Ooh.
Yeah. Like I know that Buck wasn't A, B, or C arc, but he had an arc in this episode, and the arc was literally just Eddie.
And Maddie.
And Maddie.
But like what Syl said, those can parallel very much, where he's already, for one or the other, he's already kind of feeling on the outs, like he doesn't really know that person anymore.
His sister.
So then he's like, I don't know how to interact with you, because this perception that I've had of you is kind of
I don't really know you anymore.
Shattered.
And
I don't know how to interact with you with this new information.
And feeling like it's like his fault. Like he's at fault that like they haven't opened up and told him about whatever the thing is.
Yeah, because of course it would be his fault that like they don't trust him enough to, you know, confide in him, which is then what Eddie does. And Maddie still, to contrast, Maddie doesn't really do that yet with Buck. I mean, she has a little bit, but just
she does it with her person that makes her feel safe.
Yeah.
Super interesting. Interesting stuff.
Ooh, there was so much more to that than I thought.
Yeah, there's just so much insane stuff to dig into.
Yeah, we could literally keep talking about this stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, I just really wanted to highlight one of the things that really tipped me off to Buck being fucking weird in this advice giving.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't talk like this. Or he's like, Eddie's like, I'm sneaking around, I'm lying to my son, whatever. And Buck's like, she's your wife, you're not breaking any commandments.
When has Buck ever made like a religious reference?
What? Literally, the next one we see is in like season 7.
Really?
He was just, that I can think of off the top of my head. He's not tied to religion, like in any way. It's one of the reasons he's way less repressed. Like he was repressed in the way that it was CompHet, but like
he doesn't really have a lot of religious trauma.
He has so much other trauma, but not religious. But yeah, it was just like just so weird, man. Just so weird. So I think when I watch that, I'm just like, he's just feeling so weird in that situation, and it's just screaming. It's just screaming like developing feelings. It's screaming the like not knowing you're gay, and then feeling weird, and not even like knowing that it's jealousy, but feeling weird about your best friend's significant other. That is what it's serving.
Well, I think we unwrapped this gift of an episode.
It might take you all of December to listen to it. But we're getting to you early.
Good, because we're probably going to have a 3-month hiatus, so.
Not us.
Oh, no, the show. We will keep you company during this 3-month hiatus.
We'll be your best friends.
Coming to you weekly.
Yeah, we got some really fun episodes coming up this month. I think we only have one more regular one, and we have some specials coming up for Christmas and New Year's.
We can keep you company during the
So we
holidays.
can keep you company. There are going to be some specials. We're going to be talking about Taylor Swift songs and albums relating to characters.
If you haven't figured that from the titles of our episodes that we're a little bit of Swifties over here. So if you're interested in that, keep a lookout.
So yeah, that'll be a fun time. I feel like there's a lot of Taylor Swift fans in the fandom, so hopefully you guys will enjoy that. And I think that's a wrap on Xmas.
Gift wrap
with a little bow on it.
Just put us under the tree.
Just don't put us in a cargo.
Anyway,
a plain cargo compartment. Remember, don't ship yourself.
But if you do,
take a buddy with you.
Thank you for listening to the Buddy System podcast from start to finish.
We literally cannot shut up about 911, so please come talk to us on your favorite social media platform.
We're at Buddy System Pod everywhere. That's BUDDIE System Pod.
Leave a 5-star review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts to get a personal shout out in the next episode. The Buddy System is a Nerdvergent media production featuring music from Divinity.
Can't get enough of the buddies? Subscribe to our Patreon for access to exclusive content and our Discord community.
Catch you next time, and don't forget,
bring a buddy with you.